Would you?
And is there action to be taken from closed session?
There is. I have, I'll make a motion to accept personnel requests as presented by the superintendent.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hubbard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Padilla. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Was that the only one?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And if you feel so inclined, join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we've got some district recognitions to do. So Dr. Thomas.
Yes, so good evening, Ms. LaJudas and members of the board. We have 3 recognitions this evening. I want to first and foremost recognize our parent and family engagement team led by our Director of Special Programs, Mrs. Elva Torres, and Mr. Joe Del Leon, Parent Support Specialist, and Mrs. Aide Alex Alvarez, also Parent Support Specialist. This dynamic duo has just done a phenomenal job over the last, how many days have we been in school? 9 days of being point for our parents and our families. Dr. Shermani and I were talking about this morning actually about how smooth it has been with our parents and the assistance that they have received, especially our Hispanic, Spanish dominant speaking families. So a big shout out to Mr. Torres, Mr. De Leon, Mrs. Alvarez. We could not do this work without you. So thank you so much for making Hippo Nation proud and taking care of our families. We love you.
Thank you so much. We're so honored. Thank you, we appreciate it.
All right, thanks for being with us. All right, the other lady, can we pin Mrs. Blanca Parsons on the screen? Is there a way you can pin her? Is Blanca with us tonight? Well, people may not, you don't see her on there? Okay, well, Ms. Parsons is a member of the Veterans Hill Elementary School family, and Blanca Parsons is the district translator. And I tell you what, Blanca has been on call 24/7 since we closed back in March. And even through the summer, when all the other staff members were enjoying some downtime over the summer, Blanca was translating for us nonstop. And to this day, she is still translating every communication that goes out by the district, everything that we publicize. She's even helped me with some of my presentations. I did a full interview on Monday night with Univision, and she helped me translate the presentation. So her Spanish was so perfect that even I had a little difficulty with it. But please, to all of our audience, everybody who's present, please give Blanca Parsons a huge shout out. We wouldn't be able to do our work and reach our families without Blanca. So, woohoo! And then I think something very unique, quite unique to Hippo Nation is our district support call center. So we have a call center. I had the opportunity to visit the technology office last week, and I walked into our technology, what is normally our technology training room, and that entire room was filled with people with their headsets, and they were on their computers, and they were fielding calls. And so our parent support, the tech support chat center, it was led by, let's see, we've got obviously David Ostreicher, our director of technology, leading that phenomenal effort. But our chat support group was Chris Ellison, Joe Cody, Justin Janice, Ryan Bowles, David Newsom, Laura Mercer, Melissa Davila, and Laura and Melissa are part of our library staff. Angela Hartman, our lead librarian for the district, was in there, and Angel Sight Garcia out of transportation. So this tech support team, they had fielded over 849 chats since school started, just being available and helping our families. So Mr. Ostreicher, thank you so much for leading the charge and once again providing that phenomenal support to our families. It takes an entire team, takes an entire village to take care of our Hippo Nation community, and we certainly have the right people on the job. Thank you for making us proud.
Okay, now we will hear from our public. So the board welcomes the public and its comments. We ask that you refrain from comments about any district employees without proper due process. Each comment will be allowed 5 minutes. Opinions expressed by speakers do not necessarily reflect those of the Board of Trustees or administration. So Mr. Robinson will be sharing the public comment with us, and Ms. Renaga will be keeping time.
Just 1 second. Okay, I think we have 5 tonight. So first one, hello, my name is Juliana Swed, and I am the campus nurse at Hutto Elementary. I want to express my appreciation for the board's recent decision to delay resumption of face-to-face instruction. Thank you for continuing to prioritize the health and safety of our community. And thank you for demonstrating that by continuing to prioritize the input of our district's public health professionals. I know that each step of this process has been difficult and that this decision will be met with frustration or opposition by some community members. I hope that where there is conflict or tension, we remember that this is not a contest between reopen and stay closed factions. Yes, we are in battle, but we are all on the same side against this virus. We can't cede ground to the virus in this battle by resuming face-to-face instruction prematurely. Our community has not yet met the previously established benchmarks for resumption of in-person instruction. While I wish the situation were different, we can all only do the best we can with what's in front of us. There are no easy answers or good options in this pandemic. That said, I agree that delaying the resumption of campus-based instruction for another week is the safest decision. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Julie Swed. Please allow our children to attend in-person school. I sit there and watch my daughter do online class and ask her afterwards questions about what the teacher is talking about, and she has no idea because she is not an adult and not disciplined enough to do online school. The decision to continue to make our kids participate in this type of education is shameful. I have nieces and nephews who have already started in-person school, and guess what? The world hasn't come to an end. They are getting a more appropriate education for their age group. There is no statistical data that shows children are at a great risk of contracting the COVID virus. On top of my child being robbed of educational time, the financial hardships created by the decisions of the board to withhold in-person school is becoming unbearable. I have to pay people to watch my child when they should be in school because my job as a public servant doesn't stop. I still have to go to work, as do so many people. Then there is the social factor. My daughter and I just moved here over the summer. I do my best to give her the opportunity to meet friends and kids her age, but school is where kids truly learn social skills. With all the unnecessary craziness occurring in our country today, it would be vitally important for our kids to be submerged into a socially diverse environment so they could learn about the other people's cultures and hopefully grow to be better people than the ones causing chaos in today's world. Our children deserve better than online school. It is your responsibility to make a decision to allow our kids to obtain the education they deserve. Clinton Kondo. Hutto ISD Board. I am writing as a concerned parent of 2 school-aged kids. Both require special education services. Our kids deserve better than the online learning that is being provided. Our kids deserve a teacher who is educated and trained in teaching our children, friends to play with, and less screen time. Parents who need to work to provide their needs are not able to do so because they have to stay home to teach their children or pay a daycare to monitor their children. One of those daycare is currently operating inside the schools that are closed to the public/students. How hypocritical is that? Daycares are responsible for getting all their kids to their classes on time, but with many different schedules, that's difficult. Please log on and listen to a Google Meets for our elementary kids. They are struggling with no real help from professionals. Our Hutto ISD families deserve free, appropriate public education, FAPE, and are not receiving any of that. I respectfully ask that you open the doors to all of our Hutto ISD students so that their education can continue and they can become the wonderful scholars we know them to be. Thank you, Devin and Carrie Land. Next one, I wanted to speak, but if I can't, I want to communicate that it is vitally important that we have kids return to school. We already have a plan to allow parents that want to keep their children at home, but I want to have the ability to send mine to school. One needs interventions for speech and physical therapy, which he can't receive until we return. He was tested prior to spring break, and we have not been back since, and he is falling behind, hopefully not irrevocably. My next oldest needs the socialization of school and is in the talented and gifted program and needs to be in person to get that enrichment. My oldest daughter is in 8th taking algebra and Spanish and needs, I feel, the superior instruction that occurs in person while she is getting foundational level language and mathematical training. Please let the board know that many parents want our kids back for in-person instruction. Regards, Randall Clark. The last one. Good evening, board members. Overwhelmed is not a strong enough word to describe how we as teachers are feeling right now. During the first 2 weeks of synchronous learning, I have spent more time trying to fix technical issues than I have teaching. I am barely able to navigate my way through my own technical issues with all the new technology and programs. Then add on top of that, having to help the kids with their issues is more of a stress than any of us thought it would be. My school has not received all the clear touch boards, and I'm finding I need 3 monitors in order to run my classroom during synchronous learning. I'm using the clear touch board of one of my colleagues who is having to teach from home to monitor my kids on Dino. I need to have my computer presenting, whose battery when fully charged does not last 3 class periods, and I need to have a third computer to join the meet twice this, so I can see when students need my help or asking questions in the chat like we have instructed them to do so they don't interrupt the teacher. Students are not attending class like they should. Some are having connection issues while some are choosing not to attend. Some have no parents at home and have to watch much younger siblings, so school is not a real priority. I have students that join for attendance and leave or get disconnected after I take it and miss the lesson. I have tried my best to reach out to them or catch them up, but it's nearly impossible to do while teaching the students in the meet, being technical help, and trying to support 504 and SPED like I need. My administrators are doing their part to help us, but there is only 3 for our entire population that does not seem to stop growing. I have my class rosters change daily, and some of us have 45 to 60 students in the virtual learning sections. Canvas is another beast itself. I feel like we were not given enough time to feel even a little good about it before we started school with kids. I went to all the training, extra webinars, and joined several help groups on social media to try to get a better grip. I still feel lost. It's very hard to make adjustments, change things, or even use the programs that are supposed to work well with Canvas. I have not been sleeping. I spend hours trying to stay a day ahead and anticipate any issues that could come up. My colleagues and I have seen those lessons we spend hours preparing go down in flames due to technology issues, and we are exhausted with having to readjust and stay positive with students. I feel I am someone who normally does not complain without an alternate solution, but I am at a loss and I feel defeated. All I know is that what we are doing is not working and all involved are suffering. Respectfully, Amanda Villarreal, 6th grade math, Hutto Middle School. That is all.
Thank you. So now we will go on to reports, and we'll start with the board president report. So as we talked about, we were going to have a talk about an article out of the Lone Star magazine, and so this month Mr. Owens picked the article, and if anybody has anything to briefly add to what he is going to share, then we'll do that when he's done.
So the article I picked was Community Commitment. It is Hutto ISD. It has to do with the COVID-19. Reading the article, it was kind of nice to see that a lot of things that they were doing in their district, we were already doing here in Hutto. Mr. Hunt, the superintendent, and Mrs. Brown, the communication officer, have put together a COVID-19 tab on their website to kind of keep them up to date, something that we're already doing. Dr. Thomas has done many table talks virtually to keep the public updated, which is something they've been doing. One of the things that I was interested in was that the superintendent did a hobbies with Hunt, and it was a way for the superintendent to connect with the students. And so they would do a virtual meeting, and he learned how to do Taekwondo. They did some baking, and so it was a way for him to kind of stay engaged with the kids. The school board also had talking points to kind of stay in touch with the district. It all started right after spring break, but they continued to keep these virtual communications to stay intact with the districts. They do monthly surveys with the parents and the staff to make sure that they're still kind of in tune with what the public and the staff are wanting. So it was a really pretty good article. And one side note that Tom, school board president, is one of my leadership past and classmates. So I had an opportunity to talk to him a little bit about it. So good article.
Did you have something more, Dan?
Yeah, I just really like the quote at the very beginning of the article. It said, "In what ways might we make engagement irresistible?" And I think as we're continuously down this path of excellence, I think that's an interesting thing to kind of think about as we plan our communication with the public.
When I read that, Terrence, I thought you were trying to say that we should be doing story time virtually with the kids, because that was at the end of the article, which, hey.
Yeah, they were reading books too. Everyone was reading books, yeah.
All right. So let's see, a couple of other things before we go to item B. If you guys got my email, we have 2 trainings that are required of us in Safe School, so you probably have been getting those emails. since our trainings have been delayed, so we don't have to finish those until January. We get a little bit of leeway with that, but we are still required to do both of those trainings. So I had said, made our deadline for September 15th, just being optimistic, but just if you guys can get those done, because we will have to have those done also. So one of them we did the cyber security. We just did in April, but that was brand new for us. So now we have to catch up and get on track with that. Will be due every single fall. We'll have to retake that. So.
And it's long.
And
I
it's
finished
long.
it today.
Yes.
And riveting.
They do have some good information though.
It is good information. And then
94, the second time I took it.
Another thing is at the moment, myself, Morgan, and Edgar, I believe, are the three people that are signed up for the convention that will be virtual this year. So we need a TASB delegate and alternate. So of the three of us, somebody has to volunteer for one of those jobs.
I would love to nominate Edgar. I think he'd be the perfect candidate for an auspicious position.
And actually, yeah.
No idea what I'm being volunteered for, but I'm happy to find out more about it.
That sounds like a yes.
And Edgar, I think you should nominate Morgan as the alternate.
Yeah, because Billy did it last year.
However, so my only caveat is if I have to be present in a meeting during the day, I absolutely cannot do that. I have no time that I'm able to take yet.
My concern, because if I'm not mistaken, it's September.
The
what is
last
it?
weekend in
Yeah,
September.
last week, the 30th. Is it the 30th first? Does it go into October or is it?
Well,
If it's on a weekend, I can do it.
Yeah, it starts, I haven't,
usually it's on
September
Saturday.
1st, October 2nd.
Yeah.
Usually this part of it, the delegate assembly is, happens on that Saturday.
But it would be
Oh.
virtual.
Okay. Yeah, if it's Saturday, that's perfect.
no, it's
I
not
can-
going to Saturday, is it?
It is.
Saturday morning.
I remember it was like Thursday through Saturday, right?
Before he backs out, so what I.
Normally it was Wednesday. Normally it's like Thursday through Sunday or something, but I think they cut
There
it
is
down.
like a session Sunday.
Yeah,
He's the primary,
I'll do it.
I'm the alternate.
Thank you, Morgan.
You're welcome. No, thank you.
Some basic.
No, it's both. Terrence and I have done it
That's a
the
big job.
past 2 or 3 years, I think, so.
So actually, I just got an email today because our presentation for Hippo Nation University got accepted. And it says here the virtual conference is September 30th to October 2nd, not Saturday.
What is October 2nd?
October 2nd is a Friday.
It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday instead this time?
Yes, that's what I'm reading. I'm looking at the email now. The virtual text.
I can take some time off. I have to.
All right, Morgan.
Sorry.
Put myself down as the alternate.
Sorry. I mean, I can do I can spend my lunch to do something.
It's
like-
longer than that.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and take the time out now. That way I don't have to worry about it. I know.
Okay.
That'll work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next year I'll do it.
I'll just get with you on precisely what I,
And there's usually an information session before we have to go in, to kind of tell you.
But I will give you some, like, what to expect.
just need to orient myself. If there's anything I need to be sure I get done before.
Okay.
You don't even get a pad all this time.
Okay, and then we also, Terrence had asked for us to go ahead and assign schools, which we can do that now and just know that that will be our schools, you know, when we get to go back in person, if we choose to. This is what I said. The challenge to me is not wanting to go up and good morning and hug people, but we will have to obviously be strict on, you know, the social distancing and masks and safety. But before we do that, We also, Terrence was interested in attending the National Advocacy Institute in Washington, DC in January. So every school board can nominate a person, a board member, and an alternate if we choose to go into a pool, and then they'll be selecting one person from every region, 36, I believe, out of the pool of nominees that are suggested. So Terrence, do you want to speak on, like, tell us why you want to go to that and kind of what the return on the investment is?
Well, personally, just for advocacy, something I'm really passionate about, gives us an opportunity as a district to get in front of our congressman, which is currently John Carter. There's Individuals with Disability Education Act is one of the areas that on the national level that we can have some influence. I think it's important as a school district to have that conversation, have that audience, whether it's with John Carter or whoever's in the office come November. And I've made attempts to call the office right now and set up some dates. I just think with advocacy on the national levels is really important for school district. Part of this nomination will include a stipend, if accepted, that will be covered by TASB. I've currently already been in contact with several other members of board members across the state, which we will start looking at kind of getting a message with Dr. Thomas's input. I got accepted 2 years ago, and I didn't pull the trigger to go. I just think it's a 3-day conference. There's key speakers, there's work sessions, and then on the last day, we spend the whole day at Capitol. And so walking around and meeting and just kind of just meeting those stakeholders. I know that the district only gets about 2% from the federal government, but I think it's very important in the climate that we're in to have a voice on that level. I just think we're really well received. If accepted and approved, I'm not asking for any additional funds from the district. The stipend will be paid for, and I will incur the cost of plane tickets and hotel reservations.
So then there's no financial impact for the district for this nomination?
Yeah. If at all.
I think I read that we're supposed to nominate, if we choose to do this, we're supposed to nominate a primary and then an alternate. So are we wanting then to, is anybody else interested?
It's a Sunday through Tuesday. For the days of the,
And January 24th through 26th.
yeah, Sunday, 20 Tuesday.
You interested?
I'd like to nominate Terrence, and then of course we could nominate an alternate, but can I just bring up that I'm not sure if we believe in this as a board and as a district and it's going to benefit the district tremendously. I'm not sure that I'm not okay with the district covering the expense for the travel.
And I was gonna,
I think we should. I think it makes
Well,
sense.
my concern was just, that we are in the environment that we're in.
No, I understand.
And I felt like this was a little bit above and beyond what we do normally in the district, with TASB conference and kind of doing what on a local and state level.
Yeah, and this is, we're all very prudent board members and as a team, and I think, again, this is something I think of really critical importance. And again, if we're going to glean as much value from it as we know we will, and we think we will, sending someone who truly cares about this as a board member, then I think we should make the investment as a district. It's not something we do very often at all. As a matter of fact, we don't do these things at all.
that's right, I think it is a worthwhile investment in professional growth and that exposure to other leaders around the country. But I think more importantly, for the public that's listening, we have been extremely prudent with our funds, with our travel funds. We didn't travel at all last spring or last summer. The TASB conference, which is usually a huge expense for us, there's only 3 of us registered for that. There's no travel because it's all virtual. So that line item, that budget is intact, and there's no reason why we could not fund the expense for Mr. Owens or for you, if you were the alternate.
And I've already made reservations for hotel. I'm not sure where the conference is going to be held. Airline tickets are about $250 round trip. Let's see.
Well, we do have in our board operating policy a limit on, or we, right, the hotel cannot be over the
State minimum.
I think it's like 150.
That's gonna be hard in DC.
Well, I mean.
No, I've got reservations for 150.
Okay.
If we can put that much towards it, you know, to where
Gotcha.
even if he has to put out some,
Mhm.
it's minimized at least, you know.
Yeah, the only other concern I have is that, and well, my wife has, is my health. So I think December, I'll be flying in position to know with positions.
well, and that's why we would have an alternate, right?
Do we even know that they would actually end
And they're not
up
even,
having it?
yeah, they're not even sure yet. I mean, as of right now, it's a go. So there could be a potential that they will go with you.
Running this point, I think.
Well, I have a couple. And you beat me to it. Beyond the expense is the expense of your health and whether or not that's something.
Yeah, and I will definitely get approval for my position. So, I mean, I understand the health issues. And I feel like I've been on the road for recovery, but there's always going to be that chance or that possibility. So,
Line going that far. And then I'm reading this and I'm sort of curious because did we make the nomination or are we making that tonight? Is that what the purpose is?
I would think that that's what the conversation is, right? Because when I read the form, it said that the board would nominate
Yeah,
a delegate and an alternate.
so Terrence expressed interest before we nominated, right? Is that?
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay.
But you've already submitted
I've already
the,
submitted the nomination because I could as an individual. I just wanted to present it to the board.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there can be self-announcement.
Yes, but that's what I did 2 years ago. But it's like I said, it's not even guaranteed.
I guess it doesn't read, that's not the way I read it, so.
I know we're not your parents, but,
But I sort of am.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
but you-
Like I said, I've had this conversation with them.
But Ms. Gooding is, and we love you and we just we worry about your health. And if you're good to go,
Like I said, I should know by then, in the next couple of weeks.
yes.
So is there like a timeline you would have to cancel and not incur any cost? if you
Yes,
had to-
well, airline ticket, I would go ahead and probably purchase myself and then need to get reimbursed, which it would be with Southwest. And if I don't go, I'm not gonna lost the hotel if we cancel the day of trip, so.
I'm not trying to
Conference
lead
cost
anyone.
anything?
Mhm.
Does the conference cost anything?
So.
That's what the stipend
That's what the
is.
stipend is.
Gotcha.
Kathy would pay the
Gotcha,
registration
gotcha.
costs.
So not to beat a dead horse, but I'm reading the form and it says that it has to be filled out by the board president, right? Like that this person has been nominated, but was there a different like leadership TASB form?
Well, it was just the email I received.
Okay.
I filled it out, but it probably wouldn't hurt for,
I mean, if we're gonna be naming Edgar as the alternate, then that's going to.
And I'm not able to be I'm not able to be the alternate.
Oh.
Because that's right around my birthday, so I know I'll be out, I'm sure, but, sorry, but,
That's okay.
yeah.
I mean, we don't have to have an alternate.
But we don't have to have an alternate, you know, at least right now, we don't have to do it right now.
And we don't even have to do a nomination because he's already done it, right?
So then we wouldn't fill out this form then?
and that's what I did 2 years ago.
Are we all on the same page in terms of the expense? Do y'all agree with that or disagree or?
Well, it's in our board operating procedures. Every board member has 6 days of travel. So this could go toward his part of the 6 days.
Okay.
And then later on in the year, if we go beyond that, then that's when he would need to require approval.
Gotcha, okay.
But if he's willing, if he's willing to incur the expense, would we tell him not to incur the expense?
I think that would be, I think it would be a choice, but I do think it's.
Yeah, we can't tell them not
we can-
to.
Yeah, we can't tell him not to.
I think
I think we can offer.
Well, and I think if the district's gonna pick up any of the expense, we need to make the nomination formal, not just the fact that
I think you're establishing sort of a precedent. If somebody decides on their own that they're gonna do something, then if there's expense incurred, I think we need to make it formalized.
I don't think it doesn't hurt if it's or fill out another application.
Okay,
So we don't have an action item on it tonight, though, right?
it's just a matter of filling out that form.
Okay.
And then as far as assigning schools, why don't I'll send an email out and you guys can email me the school so we can move on with the meeting.
Do you want to ask the principals, like, what would be least disruptive and most helpful for them so that we know when we accept that assignment, what it is that they would like for us to do?
Sure. We have an upcoming meeting this week, so we'll put it on the, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm thinking we get like a big long stick with a hand on it for high five.
And then you sanitize it between every high five.
Right, that's right.
Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so there's an attachment in the board book, but starting off with celebrations, just want to do a shout out. I know all of our principals are online, so shout out to our principals and our teachers who are online for doing such a great job of taking care of our kids and our parents, and I know they're reaching out beyond the call of duty. So thank you for that. Also want to do a shout out to Amy Huddleston and HR for taking care of our employees. So thank you, Amy. And also she oversees anything having to do with COVID. Amy's in charge. Another celebration that's not on there but came through after we submitted this was that our presentation for Hip Foundation University was accepted by Tessa Tasby. So we will be presenting.
So I guess we need to have a further discussion about that since Terrence isn't signed up to go.
Right, and when I submitted the presentation, I did include Terrence's name on it because he was the president at the time. So we can definitely talk about that. But
And that's in October?
that's in October,
Okay.
yes. That's that last weekend in September, early October, yes. Our enrollment is right at 8330, is that correct, Dr. Cervani?
No, 83:45.
8345, see how quickly numbers change. So, and our projection is right at 8,600, so we're still below projection. But compared to some of my sister school districts, I think we're a little bit closer to our projection than most. So I'm not going to go over turnover rate because Human Resources has a formal report today. We're going to close out the data for the year. As far as resignations for this past month, we had 9 professional resignations and 27 non-exempt staff resignations, and we talked about some of those in closed session. We hired a new LSSP and we've hired a new HEF director. Really happy to welcome Claudia Cardwell as our new HEF director as well. Just a FYI, we're going to resume superintendent table talks for 2020, 2021. And the first one is on Thursday, September 10th. We're going to do 2 sessions, one in the morning at 7:30 and then one in the evening at 6 o'clock for our people coming in from work. So we'll send out the Zoom links for those. And if you're available, hop on the Zoom. Just a note there about school member training, because this came in a TASB email. I know you all received those emails, but just a reminder, there is, even though training requirements are waived, they don't go away. We just have a little more time to get them done, except for Mrs. Goody, yes. A note about CARES money. So I don't remember if I put this in the Friday report or not, but you know, the part of the CARES money that came in from the national government to the state was given to our counties, and our Williamson County received $93 million in CARES funds. So the Williamson County superintendents are currently working with Williamson County on tapping into those funds. So Mr. Graham and I have met with Scott Hesselmeyer, the county treasurer, and we're going to be putting together a proposal in tapping into those funds. So part of that tapping into the funds involves reaching out to our county commissioner, Commissioner Bowles, and letting him know what our needs are for that CARES money. Just as an FYI, the city reached out to the district for representation on the panel that's interviewing the city managers. So I volunteered, and so I'll be doing that on Monday, just FYI. And then I need your help with HNU. The information is out there, but we don't have any applicants yet. So we've had 2 successful sessions, and I know people are probably thinking, you know, I know it's an odd time, but I would love to have at least 12 to 15 people for this 3rd session. So if you know of any community members that are interested, please let them know the application is live and online.
You got 92 people listening right now, if you want to.
That's right, to our public that's on there. We're going to start off with virtual sessions. Hippo Nation University is a great way to get involved with your school district and just find out about the inner workings of the school district. You will be in the know about information that other people don't get to hear. You'll get to interact with all of the members of the executive team, with our school board, and really just dive into how a school district operates, how it functions, how it's funded. A big question is always, what happens to our tax dollars and where does the tax money go? So we do spend a lot of time talking about funding and budgeting and how we utilize our funds. So if you are interested, or if you know of a neighbor or a friend, please refer them to our website. It says Hippo Nation University, and it'll be class of 2021. And then lastly, oh no, I got 2 more things. We're gonna meet with the Historical Commission. You all received an invitation for September 9th, so thank you. Most of you have already accepted that, so thank you. As a matter of fact, because you have accepted, we're actually looking for another meeting venue so that we can be properly distanced and be safe with that meeting. Okay, last thing, we are going to be taking some headshots next week, just to kind of update and freshen up our profiles on the website. And I invite you, if you have not had a professional headshot done, you're welcome to do that. I'll put the details on the Friday report. It's gonna be on Thursday over at the PAC at the high school. So for all the principals who are listening, you're taking a headshot on Thursday, so dress your best for your professional headshot. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All right. So I believe you're still up, correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, the most important part. Okay, Mr. Robinson, can you find the instructional safety plan update? Okay, if we can go to the second slide. All right, so our decision-making markers, when we look at our instructional safety plan, just a reminder, we went over this on Friday, but for our public. So we take a look at the availability of our countermeasures, which is our PPE, safety protocols, plans, learning devices, accessibility of learning devices. I read today an article that there is a backlog of school districts. There are about 5 million devices that are on back order state-wide. So I think we're just extremely fortunate to be able to have devices for all of our children. And I feel for the districts who have not been able to get the devices that they need, because it just, I mean, children are children. Obviously, we're happy that our children are taken care of. But as a public ed administrator, I feel for the children who don't have a device, because it's just going to set them back. Very sad situation. The other marker we look at, of course, are the cases in Williamson County. The goal is to trend into the single digits. The percentage of hospital beds that are in use, including ICU and general beds. The percentage of ICU beds in use. The positivity rates, the goal is trending toward 5%. And the infection rates, and there's a correction, I think last week I had that infection rate goal was 5%, and I was mistaken. That was an error on my part. The goal for the infection rate is to be trending toward the 1% mark. And then, of course, always reviewing guidance provided by our local health officials. So continuing the data with surrounding school district start dates, we made a couple of adjustments. Just as we're meeting, all other area school districts are meeting and revisiting and tweaking things about what they're doing. So this is just an FYI of what you have in place. The further north and the further west you go, you have less of an extension. So right now, Georgetown doesn't plan to extend beyond September 10th. Talked to Steve Snell today, Liberty Hill. They started in-person instruction today. So Dripping Springs doesn't plan to extend. They're starting like us on the 14th. And I won't go into all the others, but I know this is always a point of interest for us. As far as looking at our instructional plan updates, we've completed the leveling of classes and we're requesting the new positions. So thank you tonight for approving the additional teaching positions that we need. We do have virtual classes that exceed the 22-to-1 at the secondary level, just like our teacher in the public comment. Our virtual classes are overloaded. We have given our secondary principals additional teaching units. So as soon as we can get those teachers hired, will provide some relief along those lines. And Hutto Middle School is the one middle school in the district that has reached their enrollment projection, if not exceeded it. They've exceeded it, yes. Okay. Today, there's 37 kids in registration queue as of this morning. So they continue to come in. As we process kids, more families are coming in. And our hunch is that once we are able to start in-person instruction, I think we'll see an even bigger uptick in enrollment. Virtual instruction is going well for the most part. We continue to troubleshoot various problems as they arise. I sent an email this afternoon to Elva Torres, who we recognize, and I said, Elva, tell me about what you're hearing from Mr. De Leon and Mrs. Alvarez with regard to difficulties that families may be experiencing. And it's about the connectivity and being able to maintain that connection, and then just staying up with the virtual instruction. The virtual instruction is very different from what families experienced in the spring. The teachers are keeping it's the regular curriculum being rolled out virtually. So there's going to be an adjustment period, and we may have to adjust what we're delivering with instruction, but we're committed to try to keep the kids on pace as well. It's a balancing act.
And right now, the majority of that is synchronous, right?
Synchronous for 3rd through 8th grade. Okay. Yes. And then the very last one, I was meeting with Dr. Sermani today on our bi-monthly meeting. We have a magic school bus. And I said, how did I miss knowing about this? But we have a magic school bus that has been a big hit with some of our kids receiving special services. So big yellow bus rides out with a teacher, and they provide face-to-face instruction from a safe distance, but it actually drives out to kids' homes, and the teacher interacts with the children face-to-face. So I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, Dr. Kurth.
That was Dr. Kurth's idea. All I had to say is yes, and Henry had to find me a bus.
And a driver. Or is the teacher driving?
No, the teacher's not.
No. Okay.
Well, we'll hire some, we need some.
Yeah. So in this is sidebar, in Fredericksburg, because there's such a shortage of drivers, a lot of the teachers, the high school teachers, do morning routes. They go out and pick up kids and then take them to school, and then they go in and do their teaching. They get extra pay for that, but that's how they make up for not having enough drivers. We talk about shortages, there's definitely some out there.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes.
Can I say one thing about the connectivity is that,
Yeah.
most people, when they hear that there's connectivity issues, they actually think it's the internet infrastructure. Actually, a lot of our connectivity issues are on the student side, or even sometimes teachers. When you download certain apps onto your Chrome, if you know Chrome, you can add all these things. It actually causes Google Hangouts and Classroom to drop you at some point because it's behind the scenes, it's stuck in a bandwidth. So I don't want you to think the infrastructure of the school district and the money you invested is working just fine. It's some other issues that we encountered. Of course, you imagine there's a whole host of them. But the latest one was certain apps are crashing that are popular that create different grids on your screen. If you don't click the right one, it crashes your Google Classroom. Not right away, but just at some point. So anyway, I just don't want you to think that physical infrastructure is a problem. There's other issues that we have to troubleshoot.
Thank you for that clarification. In human resources, we have approved 45 alternative work assignment requests. There are 6 pending. As far as COVID-related cases, pretty much the same. We have 1 active confirmed case, 4 in our isolation, 2 are quarantined, and there have been 11 resignations due to illness or COVID concerns. So thankfully, that number has not moved since last week. As far as operations, and I may ask Mr. Gideon to step in here with some of these. I won't read all of them, but we are steadily working on that classroom par stock buildup of PPE and sanitation supplies. The special furnishings of plexiglass and the sneeze guards are coming and under distribution. The bottle filter kits are en route. And in the meantime, if they're not installed, it's going to take a while to install those, isn't it?
No, as soon as we get them, it shouldn't take that long, but we only ordered 22, so we're going to also, and these are largely for your PE areas, your big gathering stations. But Kenda and Yonda actually found a way to use the sparkling water bottles that we're familiar with. There is a manual pump, and we're going to create some additional water stations so that children, when they bring their water bottles to school, have another way to fill up. I want them to stay hydrated just like we would, because all the water fountains have been turned off. There may be 1 or 2 schools where we have the bottle fillers like Curly, and YMCA kiddos are able to access those, but we want to make sure we have plenty of water in the school, whether it's through the water filler kits or with these temporary portable systems.
And Henry's been in communication with the YMCA in regards to providing support for our teachers and staff once we return to in-person instruction. And we're talking about staff who have children in other school districts who have not returned to in-person instruction, and they're going to need that support for their own personal children. Henry, do you want to speak to the tabletop discussion you had yesterday with Wilco?
And Kendra meant to write what the acronym is, but we met with the WCC HD, which is the County Health Authority under the Wilco banner. And it was a tabletop exercise involving their health authority, the epidemiologists. It was facilitated by a third-party group, and it had a lot of local school districts, a lot of the charter schools all coming together to share out with Wilco and the emergency operations folks of the County Health Authority what our various systems and protocols are. Many came on board who had, they were in the infancy of their plans, many charter schools that are starting to put their programs together, and then there were several school districts that have pretty beefy plans like Thrall and us and some of the districts that have been at this for a while. So it was a good exchange. It was about a 3-hour process, but it was another opportunity for us to hear what other people are doing, but for us to also share out what we're doing. Kendra may want to comment as well.
No, sir, that's exactly it. It was a great collaboration, wonderful opportunity to put our program and our plans through like a litmus test with other districts in the county. So it was very good.
Okay, thank you, Kendra. And of course, the signage and the flooring stickers are being delivered, of course, all with the Hippo Nation stamp. We do a great job of branding. And custodial teams are on point, helping people that are on campus. And of course, our transportation team members have done a fabulous job in filling in with other roles that we needed them for. Technology continues to distribute laptops. We see the parents coming up every day. We've had to replace some due to repairs, but I tell you what, that team just runs seamlessly. They do a phenomenal job. The additional hotspots, we ordered an additional 100, and I thought there was going to be a delay with those. They've arrived. And so of those 100 that we ordered, 52 are already out. So we've got 48 extra. And of course, we talked about the parent and student support group, the chat support that continues to help our folks. Number 9, the slide on personal behaviors. I'm going to continue to bring that one every week because this has to be our drumbeat about our key personal behaviors that, and for all of our parents and staff that's online, this is our, these are the 4 behaviors that we have to continue to embrace. Our face coverings, maintaining distance, disinfecting, and constant hand washing. That's the only way we're going to beat this virus. Yes?
I was going to say that in the discussions with our colleagues from other districts yesterday, every one of us felt 100% positive in our efforts to the disinfecting portion of this. It's really going to come down to the cooperation and the consistency with the human element, which is our children washing their hands, our parents ensuring that we're doing, and our employees ensuring that we're doing our self-checks every day, the social distancing and the masks. And we all feel very confident. If we just keep this in our heads and we do all of this, we're going to be fine. And so this was some, I guess, for me, it gave me a sense of surety in what we're doing because I heard it from these other districts and they all said the same thing. So thank you for letting me say that.
Okay, thank you, Henry. The next slide is the table of data that we have been tracking. I know last week, oh, it isn't, okay, that's okay. So this was the data that came in yesterday. The one from today came in after the board meeting started, so I didn't get a chance to load it, but when you get your Friday report on Friday, you'll have today's data, and then I'll wait for Friday's data to come in before I send out the Friday report. So this was as of yesterday. You can see there off to my right side, 31 new cases. You can see right below that, the Williamson County hospital beds in use are still at 78.9%. ICU beds are at 84%. You've got down there toward the bottom, toward the left, you've got the infection rate at 4.7. Remember, the goal is to get to that 1. And then the positivity rate at least dropped. Remember on Friday when we left, it was at 11.9. So right now it's at 8.4. So now it's trending in the right direction. And just taking a preview, I don't have today's preview. I think today's is even lower. All right, so just to get a preview of the data table, can you go to the next one? Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Yes, that one, yes. So that's the data that populates the chart. So if you just look at the last 3 columns, which are, or you can look at the last 4, because you see 821, that's the data that we looked at when we were here Friday. And then you've got Monday, the 24th, Tuesday, the 25th, and then of course, yesterday, the 26th. And yeah, the people, people who are seeing, can they see the whole table at the far end, or
it depends on how they have their screens.
Their screen.
You control that, so you can move that.
I can, oh, okay, because I can see it online. But All right, so just looking at Monday, or comparing Monday, Friday to Monday. On Friday, there were 41 cases. Monday coming in, there were 12. Then they went back up on Tuesday to 42. And then yesterday, back up to, or down to 31. Today's data, I glanced at it, it went back up today. But here's a concern in the narrative that Williamson County is providing to us. They're really concerned about the number of tests or the number of people testing. It is extremely, it's way down there. So I like to be optimistic and think, all right, well, people aren't testing because they're not feeling ill. They're not exhibiting symptoms. The public health authorities see it in another way. They're concerned about the number of people actually getting tested. So a couple of ways to see it. The infection rate, once again, this is trending in the right direction. Because on Friday, the infection rate was at 8.7, Monday went down to 6.4, Tuesday at 5, and then yesterday 4.7. So like that trend. The positivity rate
Can I
as
ask you a
well.
question?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
I'm not sure I understand what the percentage represents on the new infection rate. What percentage of what? What does that number represent?
So it represents a 7-day average over your population.
Okay.
And so, yes, so Kendra and I and Henry have gone over this 100 times, and it's hard to wrap our head around the mathematics in the background, but it's a 7-day average.
So it's a rolling target.
It's a rolling target.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So for us, I stopped trying to understand what was happening behind the scenes and just
focus on the percentage.
Focus on the percentage and focus on those downward trends. Because we could sit all day long and say, well, yeah, have all sorts of discussions about why the data is that way, but it is what it is, and this is what's being reported. The positivity rate, you can see also the downward trend. The hospital rates are fluctuating. It was at 75% on Friday, it went down, then went back up. It went back up Wednesday, just slightly. The ICU beds as well went down on Monday, and then it went up. So you've got some good downward trends in a couple of areas, and some upward trends in those hospital rates.
I think that ICU, I think I saw it drop back down to 80 today.
Today? Okay, there you go.
We still don't know for certain, is it COVID, is it other?
So this epi curve, Kendra likes this epi curve because it gives you an idea. This information helps health officials understand how illnesses are increasing or decreasing over time. So once again, it is trending in the right direction. And we talk about that spike back on July 2nd when that mask mandate came through. And you can see those downward trends in that epi curve. So another visual. Slide 14 is about the active cases in the city. And if you focus just on Hutto, as of Wednesday, there were only 5 active cases in Hutto. And I think back on Friday, forget the number, it was like 30 something on Friday. So we're back down to 5 active cases to you, which I think is phenomenal. Awesome.
Said they roll off because of time or roll
Yes.
off because of a negative test?
They roll off after those
14 days.
14 days. Is that right, Kendra? Are you there? Do they roll off after the 14 days?
10.
Oh, after the 10 days. Oh, okay. And then slide 15, you've got the COVID cases by the age groups. And I think we went over this on Friday as well. So you can see that our high school kids are definitely the ones with the most cases, very few in the elementary age children group. But like Ms. Gooding says, our adults, our teachers that are actually in the classrooms are there obviously between the ages of 30 and 45, 30 and 50. They represent the largest group. So on to 16, our decision-making markers. I think too, we're making excellent progress in getting our countermeasures in place. The COVID cases, those are fluctuating. The percentage of hospital beds and ICU beds, that still continues to be high. Positivity rates, infection rates, those are trending down. And of course, our public health officials still have us in a red phase, which is still a high infection rate. So our recommendations today is really, we just stay with the decisions we made last Friday, and there's no reason to change course right now.
I had a question on the active cases and isolation quarantine. What documentation are we requiring for them to come back?
That would be an HR question. So Amy Huddleston has a whole metric. Every case is different.
I think Lisa was on.
Oh, Lisa, you're on. Yes.
Yes, Amy is on the line because she's going to be a part of the presentation, so she can answer that question for us.
That is fantastic. Thank you. That's right. I forgot. She's doing our turnover data later.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what was the, can you ask the question again, Ms. Jones?
Oh, just what is the documentation required for an employee to come back that's either tested positive or in isolation or in quarantine?
So if I have a positive test, I require them to send me the positive test, and then I calculate the number of days that they're out from that positive test. So an employee who tests positive, I'll take the collection date on the test, and then I'll add 10 days to that date. Now, before they come back, it's not just about the days. They have to have improvement of symptoms and then be fever-free for 24 hours without fever-reducing medication. And of course, and that's different depending on the scenarios, right? If you've got somebody in the household that test positive after you were positive, then we add days onto that, but it's different for every scenario.
So we're not requesting a negative test?
No.
Just okay.
Any other questions? Okay. As we had mentioned before, we'll get that report each time we meet, so that will stay fresh.
Thank you.
And so up next is Dr. Sermani.
Actually, Ms. Jen Porter is going to be presenting the post-high school success survey, but I'll be up here to help. Jen, are you out there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
So Todd, if I remember right how you're going to do this, you're going to put that up there and she just tells you when to change slides?
I think so.
Just the driver.
So I guess just to preface this to get us along, last time we were almost done with the data, but we finished collecting as many as we could. We did the analysis. We met with the high school counselors, I think it was yesterday, and we're here to show you where we're at. We also have another round of this survey we're going to do in January, but Jen's here to show us some of the recommendations we have and some of the ideas we have for moving forward. So Ms. Porter, you go ahead and take it away.
I think she's on mute.
Jen?
Okay. I think I'm here now. There we go. Muting issues. Okay. Very good. So here in the slides is a mention of the alignment to the strategic plan and kind of our motivation behind the research assignment that we did in surveying our post-high school graduates. Thank you, Todd. Next slide. So the two questions are all, stop right there. Thank you. The two questions that we really focused on as we were reviewing the data was how do our practices impact our student outcomes, and how can we improve our processes to help our students after high school graduation? So next slide, please. Okay, so this was our timeline. We have more pieces to the puzzle to continue working on. So we conducted pilot interviews in May with a smaller group of students and real open-ended questions to try and narrow down what we wanted to ask when we went back and surveyed the entire senior body. I think we ended up around 72%, if I'm correct, Dr. Sermani, that we had answers from when we met with them in August, or when we met and looked through all the data in August. We had a number of people helping us reach out to students. The Elva's team, who were honored earlier, were a big help with that. The senior, our college and career advisor, the senior counselor from last year who worked this summer, we've reorganized a little bit, but Lindsay Hesselbarth helped, special education department helped. So we really tried to get as many students to respond as possible. Dr. Sermani shared some of the information about the survey last month, and then we've got a little bit more beef from it this month, and then we'll continue on with our work into the year with continuing to meet with students and bringing you updates. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide just kind of gives you a breakdown of what our students responded to as far as what they were doing in the fall, with the majority being attending a 2-year or 4-year university. Next slide, please. This slide here that we're looking at, I just want to point out to you that it reads a little bit differently than what the students saw when they completed the survey. When we were creating these graphs for you, we had to narrow down their responses just a little bit so it would fit on the bar graph, basically. And so you can see how our students responded, and this was in particular to what did our school district do to help prepare them for future steps. Next slide, please. This one was asking them about barriers and challenges that they've experienced. Next slide, please. This one was asking what could we have done better? So what would they have liked to have had from the school? And next slide, please, Todd. Okay, so when we looked at the numbers, because we did a lot of focus on the numbers, we're still reviewing the comments because the last question of this survey is an open-ended response. So students, we have a lot of information there to read through. But in our initial analysis, really, you looked at those numbers, and one of the big things that stood out to us was that relationships matter. There's so much research out there telling us that students who feel connected to school are more likely to succeed. They have better attendance, better grades, higher test scores, and they stay in school longer. There's also a lot of research being done currently, some at the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard, that tells us relationships are a key factor in fostering resilience in both children and adults. So the relationships the survey addressed specifically were student relationships with teachers, coaches, counselors, and administrators. And those numbers were really great. A lot of feedback that those relationships mattered to these kids. The data also told us that students need support as they transition into adulthood, and the level of support varied depending on their plans and their family situation. And finally, another big takeaway was that we provide students with exposure to their post-secondary options, but not always the follow-through and the information necessary to actually do what they want to do. One example that we read about in the comments from the students was a young lady. She was accepted to the University of Texas. She registered for classes, and then she was like, now what do I do? She wasn't sure how to connect beyond, you know, those kind of check box activities that you do as you're moving into college. So really helping students figure out the next steps in the process. Next slide, please. All right, so we took that information and just kind of came up with some initial things that we wanted to look at doing to improve our processes. Based on that information, we the first on the list is ensuring that our teachers and staff realize the impact that their positive relationships have on our students. One way that we're doing that is through the trauma-informed care trainings that we're doing with all of our staff monthly. We are highlighting the importance of relationships in that work. We're also reviewing our curriculum for opportunities to embed instruction on the skills that you need to know as you transition into adulthood. Like we had comments about, paying taxes and writing checks and things like that, that kids just, didn't have exposure to. We currently offer, we did talk about some of the classes that we might need to offer, and we talked about the fact that we currently do offer financial mathematics at the high school, and that we have enough student interest this year to fill one section of the course. But we've been offering the course, and we don't always have students request it. And so sometimes the feedback you get or the situations that we heard from students, it's really about you don't know what you don't know. And so when students stepped out into this world after high school graduation and realized what was ahead of them, they started going, oh, I wish I would have learned that. And so we need to be a little intuitive about thinking about what they might need to know. We've talked about the need to make our CTE courses more appealing to students and highlight the post-graduation benefits of completing CTE pathways while they're in high school. And we really discussed working on the career readiness advising, because we already do a lot to showcase college options for students. And when we were reviewing the data and talking to students, we have a lot of students who are college bound. But what they need when we really talked about college and career development and how we could build that to better support students while they're in high school and after, we were looking at some really specific things related to careers and then also to our college and career advising department. So we do have a school district employee, Erica Blando, that works with our students very specifically on college and career readiness. And we have a partnership with Advise Texas, which provides us a second person in that department. But we are given that person through the partnership, and we don't get to screen, hire, or kind of pick who we want for that position. And so the person who comes to us is a recent graduate themselves, and our college and career advisor spends some of her time training them and getting them ready and kind of walking through the process with them. And then the next year we get a new person. So, we asked, is there a better way we can do that? We also discussed that students don't always know who to reach out to once they get to college, and that we could do a better job with a soft handoff to college recruiters, sometimes admissions officers, and even advisors that we have relationships with and that we connect with, that we could, build those relationships for our students so they know who to go to when they're figuring out those next steps. So this is just an initial list of our ideas after our first go round with the survey data. And I believe we are going to continue to learn and improve through this process. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Have we thought about with that? Since we've provided that Finance 101 for students, and perhaps it doesn't always fill, I'm wondering if there was an opportunity to provide like a bridge program through the community ed classes geared towards recent graduates. So maybe they didn't think they needed it when they were in school, and they get out into the world and realize there are a lot of things they didn't really know. Perhaps there would be an opportunity to provide it there.
No, I think that's an excellent idea. I think some of the other things that we talked about related to that financial math classes, now with the increase in CTE courses in middle school, we've put dollars and cents in our 8th grade requirements for students. And so all students are going to get exposure to that in 8th grade. I think also another benefit or something that we have ahead of us is that now that we're coming up on the class that's going to be required to take 4 years of math each year of their high school career. And so we'll have a number of kids who, aren't going to do an advanced math track, and this would be a good course to kind of steer them into. So we have some options.
So this might sound like an obvious question, but how are Ms. Blando, for example, how are they trained on, or do they self-train and just build relationships with, like, what are all the options for kids post-secondary? You know, do they go talk with TSTC and hear about their programs, and like, where are they gathering their information to be able to share it with the kids?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of ways. There is a long history of that position, not just in Hutto, but across Texas, being pretty self-taught. You know, it wasn't like, there wasn't a guidebook for that, and it wasn't a course that we took in college kind of thing. And so great partnerships are formed, and I have noticed that the college and career advisors across districts, because there's usually only a couple in a district, so across districts they build really good relationships, and they build very strong relationships with those college advisors or the admissions officers or the recruiters. And so that is definitely where they learn a lot. And then we've seen in the last couple of years, I think with the focus on CCMR through the state of Texas, we have seen more training coming out to support those people in their positions. One in particular is Texas On Course. It was a project funded by the state a few years ago, and it's really taken off. It offers training regarding college and career readiness for all counselors K-12. And it's completely free. They also have information on their platform for students and families. So we need to plug in to what's out there and utilize it as best we can.
So SMP at TAMU, what is that? It's on, I guess, the one slide, the pie chart?
Yes.
The very bottom bullet.
Let me
I've been racking my brain. I couldn't figure that one out. I figured Texas A&M University.
Yeah, that's all I can think of is Texas A&M. I don't know.
But I don't know what the SMP means.
SMP at TAMU. I apologize. I don't know. I will have to research that one.
That's okay. As long as it wasn't just me.
Not just you. I could take a wild guess, but you know, acronyms in education.
Right.
Saturday morning business.
Is that what it is?
No, he just made it up.
Yeah.
That's what it says on Google.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen, I appreciate the focus on, I think you called it adulting. That's so important. You know, I know a lot of public higher education uses formal and anecdotal feedback from their sophomores, juniors, and seniors to create an experience, a first-year experience or seminar, you know, freshman experience for their students. So, and I know that they're often willing to share that information, absent of those unique identifiers, obviously, but that might be something that we reach out to public ed and say, hey, what are your seniors telling you that they wish they knew their freshman year, right? And that, I'm sure they would be happy to share that information, and that could serve to shape that adulting course or that life skills course, because you use the term, I think you said, they don't know what they don't know, and that is 100% true. You know, they have no idea how important certain things are their first year out of high school, and if we could provide them that experience, and more than that, a great idea, you know, through our continuing ed or community ed folks, I mean, that would be, or the classroom somehow, or via our counseling somehow, but that, I think, that is as critical as anything else we do, just that preparation, that transition, regardless of what their path is post-secondary. I think that's really important. I appreciate you doing that, focusing on that.
Philip, simultaneous membership program. Could that serve as office training in the Reserve or National Guard while completing college?
Okay. Thank you.
Saturday morning physics at Texas A&M. So I just want to apologize publicly to Henry.
other questions for Ms. Porter?
That's a big error.
Thank you.
It sure does, always think. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
And then Dr. Sermani, I believe you've got the student parent handbook review.
The student parent handbook's just there for your review. Recall, TASB recommends that you don't take action on it just in case there happens to be a discrepancy between that and your board policy, because the handbook is supposed to be a reflection of your board policy. However, it's there for your review. If you have any questions or wonderings.
Were there any highlights of changes?
No, nothing that I thought there was a, or we did most of those changes, as you recall, last year. We did a real big overhaul of it. Other than that, this was just standard, just little cleanup things, I would call them, since it wasn't a legislature year.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, thank you. We'll move to Mr. Gideon. Did you have any reports to, or yours information?
No, ma'am, but Brandon is in the back. If there are any questions from the ops or the construction report, we'll have some information and action items that we'll take on a little later. But if you have any questions, we can answer those at the time. You can always email or shoot us any kind of text messages.
I know, but Mr. Owens had a question about the ag barn, because I think the last couple of board meetings, we just continue to see an empty frame. And so I did tell him that when I drove by this past week.
Oh, I drove by.
Oh, you did drove by? I said, I saw a roof going on.
Work is progressing.
Okay.
Work is progressing. The steels are arriving on site and it's underway now. The second part of that.
And I wasn't the one to ask about it.
So, Mr. Cardwell, do we have an estimated delivery date or handover date on that ag barn yet?
Yes, and it won't be for this school year, unfortunately. So, but I mean, as far as the show season, so it may be April, May that we receive it, but by then it's too late.
So we know what the holdup is, because that was supposed to be ready this August.
No, I agree. So when we added the show barn piece, the information I got from the contractor was they didn't want to shell in and start on the existing piece when the show barn piece was going to be added to it, because there could be damage to the existing structure while the show barn piece was going up. So that's what put forward the delay.
Rick's on here. I don't know if he wants to.
He may want to comment on that.
I'm happy to, Brandon. You did a great job, but I'm happy to elaborate. So yes, the ag barn or ag facility itself, the animal storage section of it really was always and still is about a 4 maybe 5 month construction duration from the get-go. But through the process of getting that started, we also added the show arena, which those two buildings do tie together. There is hard connectivity between those two buildings. So we got to a point that it became somewhat futile to continue building the ag barn, knowing that immediately upon completion, we were going to expand that building and add on a show arena. That construction, though the ag barn facility phase 1 would have been complete and usable, the ongoing construction for the renovation portion or the addition that was immediately thereafter going to take place would have rendered it unusable to your students. So for a duration of time, while we waited on the fabrication of the metal building roof sheets, wall panels for the show barn, we essentially ceased construction on all of it. We have now received, as of about the middle of last week, we received a 2-week delivery notice on the show barn facility, the addition of the show barn piece, which is about what we had left until we were going to have reached a stopping point. So we remobilized with that 2-week notice of the show arena showing up on site. We now have the entirety of the building roofed, as well as we have started setting door frames and starting some CMU blocking inside of the ag barn, original ag barn facility, in preparation for the show arena to be delivered to the job site, and then we will finish both projects as one. There have been some conversations with Henry and Brandon No real hard decisions have been made as of yet as to what the functionality of that space can be once we complete it. We will be complete probably early spring, possibly as early as January, February with those facilities. The issue is depending on what transpires over the next 60 days or so, the transportation facility is in very close connectivity to that building. And with the 9th grade center still ongoing, the new access into the 9th grade center off of 1660 is not progressing quite as quickly as some of us has hoped. So our construction road is currently the only access to that ag barn, as well as the 9th grade center and the transportation facility once that building kicks off. So though that facility may be 100% complete come early spring and be adequately available for your students, I don't know that there is going to be safe access to that facility alongside all of the other ongoing construction. Also on the agenda later tonight is the athletic facility that just adds another few $1 million with that much more manpower, truck, 18-wheeler access to that site. So that will be something we'll discuss early next spring is, okay, we've achieved a point that we are finished with the building that is ready for student and animal access, but can we feasibly create a safe environment to do so with the rest of the construction that is going on? So we will continue to push forward and get the building completed as quickly as possible, so then at least we have options as to how we might be able to allow students to access it. Billy, I'm sorry. I'll end with that.
And Billy can chime in, but most students don't get their show animals in the fall season until the summer.
Right.
By then, we should have the adequate roadways. We should be wrapping up the athletic facilities so that we could possibly have the safe entries and possibly 2 entries to the ag facility by then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Britt.
You're very welcome.
All right. Any other questions for Brandon? Thank you. So, Ms. Patterson?
Yes, good afternoon.
Report?
Yes. This afternoon, I am going to turn the floor over to Amy Huddleston. She is our HR coordinator, and Dr. Lindsay Omquist for the retention and turnover report. So these lovely ladies are the individuals that is directly responsible for tracking turnover and some of our retention activities. So I would like you all to hear from them directly tonight. So we'll start off with Amy, and then Lindsay will pick up at a certain point in the presentation.
All right, so Todd, if you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're gonna look firstly overall at the district. So what I want you to notate, and this will be the same on anything that on any of the slides where we're comparing 18-19 retention to 19-20 retention. So you'll see 18-19 in orange and 19-20 in blue. So on this first slide, the first set of columns you're going to see is the teachers. And you can see that there was an increase in the retention rate for 19-20 when compared to 18-19. And you'll see a slight decrease for the non-teacher. Those are employees that are not teachers but are on a campus. So our paras, our secretaries, administrators, all of those that are on the campus that aren't teaching. And then that last column is all staff. So that includes the teachers, the non-teachers, and all of the department staff. So when compared, oh, hold on one second, Todd. When compared, pardon?
I said I tried to anticipate.
When compared to the most recent retention data released by TEA, Hutto's teacher retention is nearly 5% higher than that number. Next slide. Okay, so this slide is going to show the years of experience for our exiting teachers. So the legend on the right is going to show the color that coordinates with the years of experience. It's important to note that these are total years of experience for the teachers, not Hutto specific experience. So just so you understand how to read this chart, if you look at that first column, you're going to see Cottonwood Creek, and you can see that they had one teacher exit, and that teacher had 1 year or less of experience. The next one, Howard Norman. So you'll see that they had 10 teachers leave, 1 with 0 to 1 years of experience, 1 with 2 to 4 years, and 2 with 5 to 9, 6 with 10 to 14, and so on and so forth for the rest of those campuses. Next slide. So this slide is just going to show you the breakdown of the numbers of teachers exiting in each of those categories by experience, absent the specific campus. So you can see that the highest number of teachers leaving in 1920 were in the yellow category, which represents those with 10 to 14 years of experience. Next slide. So this slide is going to show you the retention rates by department. So 3 departments achieved a higher retention rate for the 1920 school year compared to the previous year. So Little Hippos, Safety and Security, and School Support were those 3 departments. All of the others showed a slight decrease. And I'll pause for the train. So let's do the next slide. This is going to show you the retention rate by elementary campus. So it's important to note that this is all staff on that campus, not any particular group. So as you can see through the columns, that the majority of our campuses had a higher retention rate for the 1920 school year compared to the 18-19 school year. Next slide. So in this one, it's going to be for the secondary campus. So it's retention rates for all staff on secondary campuses, not in any particular group. And as you can see, all of our secondary campuses achieved a higher retention rate compared to 18-19. Next slide. So this one's a little bit different. It looks the same, but it is going to be your retention rate for teachers only by elementary campus. So let's see. So all but 2 campuses for 1920 saw an increase in their retention rate. Next slide. So this is going to show the same as before, except for secondary campuses. For teachers only, our secondary campuses all had increased retention rates for this past school year. Next slide. So we figured you want to see a snapshot of what who we've had exit, or the numbers of exiting employees since July 1st. So you can see from this chart that we've had 3 teachers, 6 non-teachers on campus, and then 14 total. So really that 14 is going to include those other 2 numbers in those columns. Do I have any questions? This next piece is for Dr. Almquist. So do I have any questions on the numbers before I hand it over to Dr. Almquist? No?
I don't think so.
Awesome. All right, Dr. Almquist.
Thank you, Mrs. Huddleston. Good afternoon and happy Thursday. So the exciting part about this is the blessing of what we can provide as incentives to ensure we increase that retention and we decrease our turnover, especially in today's situation where there are lots of fears and things are in different families, different ways, and different perspectives. And so what I decided to do is do the 5 R's, and that's looking at reviewing, revamping our relationships, reconnecting, and rising. And if you notice, the relationships is in the heart of those 5. And I do believe that that is pivotal And I believe that that's the work that the blessing of this DHC, this Director of Human Capital position, provides to our staff. So to start off with, we have our review. We want to look at strong feedback, and something that Mrs. Patterson is doing is working with Hanover Research, and we will have a professional analyst actually looking at specific data, making sure we see that data that's the well questions, the right questions when people do leave, so we get the data as to why. And then the correct data. We want to know, we want it to be well received. And so that is happening through, like I just said a minute ago, the professional analyst, and I think there's going to be power in that data. Then revamp. One of the things that we are getting to do is we revamped the mentoring program for our first and second year teachers, and it is extremely strong. And our mentors are doing a fabulous job, as well as our principals. And the data shares that after 5 years, a lot of teachers leave the profession, and we want to retain them, not just in the profession, but in Hippo Nation. And so we wanted to revamp that, and we did, and we have a great relationship with school support and all the principals and being able to implement that. And so that's the part of the revamping. Then we have relationships, the heart of the work. Building talent pipelines, partnerships, and networks with all of our local, state, universities, and colleges. I have spent substantial amount of time the last couple of weeks working and spending Google Meet time or Zoom time, virtual time, getting to know the deans and different people in different colleges so that we can have a relationship where we provide resources to them and ensure that their students are supported when they become hired here, and that we can also reach out to them as a resource and to ensure that we get the best applicants. So that is a really exciting piece of this position that is happening, and that has been part of the last 4 months of a lot of the work that we're doing. So that is a blessing. Then we're moving to reconnect. So reconnecting is looking at post onboarding check-ins. So making sure, like today I checked in on 2 people and I took them sonic, and making sure that they are well and making sure that they're being supported in the role that they serve. They serve as mentors in our district. Making sure that our new staff is provided innovative resources and holistic supports. And that happens with our school support and with the resources that we provide for, again, retention purposes, to ensure that they are well taken care of holistically. And so when we think about our kids, we think about not just their academics, but their emotional, social, and all the well-being of that individual. That is the same for our staff, and we believe that that's extremely important. And then last but absolutely not least is rise. And we will rise, and we are going to be stronger and better together, as our hashtag signifies. We want to target staff through recognition and celebrations. I mentioned the Sonic. I've been doing several little things every week because I do believe it's important to show the staff that they are noticed, they are a blessing to us and our children, and that we value them and the feedback and the pieces and qualities that they give our children and our community. And so working to ensure that we continue a culture of excellence with that strong values-driven environment and culture here in Hippo Nation, not just through the HR entity or lens, but being able to be that liaison with HR and CNI so that we can do that as a group that's been really neat and collaborative, especially in this role, being able to see that. So that is the 5 R's. And I hope that you know that these 5 R's are not just words, they are being lived out every day. And I hope that that increases our retention. And based on the data so far, I believe that it will. We will have stronger data, as I shared through Hanover Research, in hopefully the short coming months. So that is our plan. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Huddleston. Thank you, Dr. Almquist. Great job.
Okay, next up is Mr. Graham with the finance report.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Board, tonight I will be presenting July financials, and basically just going to go through an explanation of why they look the way they look. as you know, this is the first month of our fiscal year. And so the financial reports are going to be a little bit different in the fact that I really don't have comparable data previous year. I thought, well, I could, you can't compare July's because of July this year, it's in your first month, and July last year is your 10th month. So that really doesn't tell you a lot. And then I thought, well, I could compare my July of this year to September of last year, which is the first month. That doesn't make much sense either because it's really not comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges because for the most part, there's a lot more tax money coming in September, but TEA also starts their payments schedule. So we receive our first TEA payment in September of every year. So it really, again, I usually do comparison data from year to year, and we'll start doing that again next year. But for this fiscal year, we'll just concentrate on the month at hand. We'll look at the general fund. And the reason you're seeing a bunch of, or seeing some negative numbers is due to salary accruals. In accounting, there's two bases of accounting. There's an accrual basis and a cash basis. And most businesses and school districts on their financials are accrual basis. And so therefore, what we've done in July is we've had to, we have basically for school district employees, you have 12-month employees, 11-month employees, and 10-month employees. And most of your teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses are considered 10-month employees, 187 days on their work calendar. And so what we do at the end of June, at the end of our fiscal year, is those teachers have already worked their 187 days, but they haven't been paid for all of those days. That payment stretches through June and July and August. So for the financials, what we had to do in June is recognize the accrued salary. Again, that's something that it's not, so we have to book that expenditure when the work happened, not when it's paid. And so in June, we accrued salaries, which is, you hit your expense accounts. And then when July hits, we reverse those because you don't want to recognize them again in July and August. We recognized them in June. You don't want to recognize them again in July and August when you run payroll. So we reverse those accruals in July, and that's why our accrual, our reversal of the expense is greater than the action. We are reversing 2 months worth of payroll, but yet we only pay 1 month's of payroll. So I don't know if that's clear as mud. Well, to some people it is, and I understand that. But that's why the financials from now on in July will look this way. It looks pretty good. It looks like we've got a revenues exceeding the expenditures only because your expenditures are negative. And the truth of the matter is we had expenditures of about $5.5 million. And so if you didn't have that salary reversal, we would show a negative of about $5 million in July, which makes sense because we are not generating any revenue in July. We're not getting any tax money. State aid payments don't start till September. That's why it's always good to have lots of fund balance. And it happens every year. It's just reflected different in the financials. This time of year, usually on a September 1 fiscal year, you can slowly see your fund balance gradually going away because you've collected in the other fiscal year, you collect all your money at first, and then you have your expenses. In a July fiscal year, you're going to have 3 or 4 months of heavy expenses before you start generating your revenue. So in the future, next month, we'll probably start seeing a negative as far as revenues, expenditures exceeding revenue. So just wanted to point that out. All right, we'll go to the next slide. And this, you can see it a little more clearly when it's broken down by function and object, because you can see all the payroll accounts are negative, because again, that's the payroll accrual. So, and again, it's mostly teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses. So it's instruction 11, 33, 31. Those functions are the ones that are hit with the biggest accrual. And Todd, hang on right here. There is one negative on function 36, and and other operating expenditures, and that was basically a refund we actually got from spring sports that we didn't receive until this year. And so it was booked into this year. It's an immaterial amount, so therefore our auditor said we can recognize that refund in this fiscal year. So that's why you're showing a negative. That's basically a refund. We're actually going to reclassify that and not put it to an expense, but show it as miscellaneous revenue. So that'll be zeroed out next month. Are there any questions on the general fund at this time? Okay, we're going to debt service. Again, as I've been mentioned for several months, we had our debt service payment in August. We usually pay that about a week ahead because it's all electronic. And if we are one day late on our payments, that really affects our credit ratings. And so we always make sure to get those payments out about a week early in case there's a oops or a glitch or something electronic that doesn't have, that may happen overnight. So we send that out early. So the payments due August 1st. So that's why it's booked in July. But we had a debt service payment in the end of July. And again, we are not collecting any revenues. Again, that's why you want to have a good fund balance in debt service at the end of the years on your July 1 fiscal year. Any question on debt service? Okay. Food service fund, it's the same scenario. We have a lot of startup cost, still a lot of cost for COVID. We're doing lots of hybrid food service right now, so we definitely have some expenses there. But again, we do accrue salaries in cafeteria workers as well because they again have earned their pay and will be paid out in July and August as well. So again, that's it looks good because we've accrued salaries in August, but that will start reversing itself. So really the financials for July don't paint a really good picture, but they'll start shaping up in a couple of months. As far as the narrative, it's basically just going over what I just explained. I do want to talk about, I need to pause. I'm sorry. Okay. I did want to mention the investment report. Federal Open Market Committee issued their latest statement on July 29th. Basically, they are going to do what they can, and they came out with a statement policy today. They're going to do everything they can to keep inflation down. And in order to do that, that's keep interest rates down. So again, it looks favorable if we do want to issue debt within the next 6 months. It looks like we're going to have a very good environment to do so. So I just wanted to point that out.
There's no return on any of those investments today.
That's true, but it's good. We're going to be possibly issuing more debt than we are having in the bank. So I would rather pay a lot less interest than on a lot of money than earn interest on a little bit of money. July 31st, the district's portfolio consisted of investment pools, money market mutual funds, and cash. Cash balances in general fund were $32.3 million, debt service 9.7. Again, that was after the debt service payment. Food service has $628,000, construction fund of $65.9 million, and $939,000 in activity funds. As far as the monthly tax collections, again, the comparisons I had in previous reports were used to show you year-to-date. The year-to-date comparisons are going to be out of whack, so I'm just going to compare monthly collections going forward. So the collections for July, the district collected $146,000 in delinquent taxes, $13,000 in penalty and interest for a total of $159,000. We will not collect current taxes until October. So everything we're still collecting on in last year's tax levy now goes into delinquent taxes because we are in our new fiscal year. Any question? Okay, we'll go to, okay, there we are. All right, so we are on the collection report. And again, the current year tax collections are zero. We won't even know our levy until we adopt a tax rate tonight. So there's no data to put in there as far as current year collections. But you can see as our delinquent tax collection balance, our original row is 474,000, and that will continue as the year goes on. Any questions on the financial report? Okay, I have the next document I'm to share with you is our Essers Grant. I know that I've mentioned in my Friday reports and mentioned that we are required to apply for ESSER funds, and ESSER funds is what TEA basically reduced our school foundation money last year. So as part of the grant and part of the process, the requirement is for me to show you the grant application, show you where those funds are going to be requested. And what we've done is basically request all the premium pay that we paid out for as far as salaries is concerned, premium pay, and then the rest of it we're putting into basically PP&E, everything, and it's everything that started last, I believe it was May, and it goes through 2022. So anything that we want to expend, we're only allocated about $279,000. So we're pretty much already done, even though we can claim some expenses in the future, but we're pretty much already going to eat up that $279,000 with the salaries and the PPEs, the plexiglasses, the new benches, the chairs, everything that we're purchasing now, we can claim on this grant. So again, just wanted to show that for informational purposes because that is part of the requirement of the grant that I do present that to the board.
I don't see that document. Am I missing it?
You have to go back into the item.
Back in the financial report?
Go back and add
Yeah,
I got you,
click on
got
it
you,
and
got
all the other ones.
I see it now. Thank you. So, I mean, we've got way more expenditures than the grant's worth, right? I mean,
well, true. And basically when we got the grant and we read through it and determined what we really could apply to it, it's pretty broad. Even though since they took that foundation money away, they did at least make it fairly broad of what we can claim. And so, you know, there are a lot of salaries, you know, you can see in there for any planning that was done, you can use salaries for planning. Well, that's basically our whole staff,
right,
since April of last year has been planning on how we will deliver instruction. So, yeah, once we found out exactly what we could go ahead and claim, then that's what we did. It's not additional monies. It's monies that we've spent. And so it's pretty easy to go in and say, okay, this is the money we spent on premium pay. This is the money we've spent on a lot of additional PPE equipment and a lot of supplies to offset COVID preparedness.
But you couldn't claim any administrative salaries.
That's correct.
Hotspot?
Which is funny. Yes, sir, you could do hotspot. Foundation money, we could pay administrative salary. Right. They take that away, put it in ESSER and say, now you can't use it for administrative salaries. But there's plenty of other expenditures, and so that's not going to be a problem. And then the last document, I want to solicit Henry for his input to go back over our plan for future bond dollars that we may sell in the upcoming months.
Todd's pulling up that slide. You will have seen the scenarios presented in the last couple of months. And as the board will recall, when we started our 2019 bond program planning, we saw our bonds, depending on our capacity, depending on our growth, and our scenarios being kind of laddered out over the course of 3 to 5 years, depending on what was going to be priorities. So the 2019 sale was around $51 million that got us started on the equity projects at our elementary campuses, renovation projects at our elementary campuses, doing some things to help more complete the 9th grade center, things like our athletic field, which will be discussed a little later on. So this year, depending on our ability to generate some capacity, and that of course is your discussion later on in terms of the tax rate, the proposed scenarios, and I'm gonna have to go up there because I can't see.
Henry, if you want to look over here.
Yeah, I'll
Sit
stand.
here.
If you don't mind, I'll stand there. That'd be good. The proposed scenarios include a total of 37 million, which would be 18 million for the stadium renovations and upgrades. That's a growth concern. It is a start towards rehabbing the stadium, which was built and added on over the years we went from a 3A district to now a 6A district. And the key features in that would be seating capacity, restrooms, concession stand upgrades, and a press box. In addition to that, we are asking for an additional 3.9 million of the allocations that we told our voters we'd like to have for HVAC projects based on our long-range planning. There's some return on the investment here by allowing us to upgrade equipment. Then at the middle schools, we were slated to do some renovation projects similar to what we were doing to our elementary campuses with enhanced spaces. The focus being on fine arts and on blended learning and collaborative spaces. There'll be some drainage projects and some other upgrades, some facade improvements. In addition to that, 5 million, which would be phase 2 of the technology plan, and then 450,000 in bus and light fleet purchases to keep up with our fleet replacement plan. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have. I would say that what remains of the 2019 bond are the big ticket items. Hutto High School renovations, about 39 million. We wouldn't be ready to start on those until we occupy the 9th grade center, which would be next year. And then of course, middle school number 3, which will be about a year and a half of design, 2 years worth of construction. So 3 years between the time we sell bonds and occupation. And so somewhere along that timeline, as we see our growth and get our demographic projections, middle school number 3 will be in the future a challenge for all of us to discuss with our stakeholders and our staff. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is really just a reminder of what we've been discussing over the last.
So you already have preliminary numbers for the stadiums for, I mean, you got 18 million, but you have an idea what that's going to cost for the bathrooms extension?
No, sir. It's a number that, as you will recall from the long-range planning facility committee and also our citizens committee, as we were putting the bond proposals together, it is an amount to get us closer to a more complete stadium, but it will probably not cover all the wish lists that we will have. And but it will be substantial. It'll allow us to get our stadium capacity up to what we need it to be. It'll rehab the restrooms that we have, probably additional restrooms, probably additional concession stands, and it was based on square foot estimates and cost of construction, and it was just a number that's a placeholder, but we would certainly build to what our budget would afford us to build.
Does that include parking?
Yeah, there would have to be some drainage and some parking improvements that we'd like to do. We'll spend our dollars as far as we can take them efficiently. Of course, y'all will be involved with, SD approvals and the budgets and so on and so forth as we would present those going forward. And it would be an aluminum system, not a concrete type of, it would be an economical system. Home side probably be the first thing that's tackled. One of the challenges, if we do decide to pursue the stadium project this year, is getting it done in between the sporting season. So likely after football season, of course, that gives us time and our design team and our contractors that we'll have to select time to, get the project out on the street. And then in the springtime, dislocate the home side, and all the attendees would be on the visitor side for soccer and track. We could still do soccer, track in the spring while renovations are going on, and then complete the job over the summer. And somewhere in there, depending on where we want to go with graduation next year, I need to safeguard time and the ability to have graduation if we choose to do graduation at the stadium this year. So, but we can make it happen.
Any other questions?
So I got a couple. Just how do we feel like the 42% online? I mean, do we? I guess we feel like at some point this year we're going to go back to 100% capacity in the school. I mean, that's our hope.
That is our hope.
Yeah.
But would we, if allowed, would we still continue to offer the virtual option if families say that that's a better option for them?
I think the Texas Education Agency has provided that allowance, so that if families have selected virtual instruction and they want to continue in that setting the entire year, they have that option for this year. It doesn't say anything about if health conditions or the entire district is on. I guess we'll just have to.
I mean, even if a vaccine come out, TA still says you've got the whole year you could do.
For now, unless they change their position on that. Yep.
Did you have another question?
No.
Oh.
I just don't know how that fits in with, okay, do we motivate, I mean, do we mobilize and start, construction knowing this is going in at the end of the year, or do we, how does the 42% of the kids being virtual affect this? I mean, does that change anything? I guess is what my question is.
I think Dr. Simoni has something he wants to say.
Well, I was just gonna re-articulate, I think what you're trying to say, Mr. Boutwell, is that I think the real question is, will TEA continue this practice of having virtual learning each next school year? And how many kids would choose that option? And that's a big question that nobody knows whether they would. That would possibly require the legislature to take action to change some of the rules that are currently in place that they've been able to waive because of the emergency. So I mean, I think it's a fair question, but nobody, I don't know if anyone knows that answer.
I mean, because it changes us needing buses, it changes us needing, brick and mortar, it changes, it's like Henry's shooting at a moving target then,
Oh, yeah, and I think moving forward in the next couple of years, I think this virtual learning is going to really change our delivery options. And it will.
I think what's going to happen is, and Dr. Simoni and I've had conversations, the silver linings of COVID and challenges we don't know yet what those challenges will result in long term. But we could see a situation where areas like high school, new high school, the full build out might be kicked down the road a little further than we had anticipated. Before COVID, we were planning based on our growth.
Right.
But now if all of a sudden we have some creative means and methods to deliver instruction to say 20 or 30% of that high school population, that might result in a future bond discussion that might delay the full build out of that second high school. I think it's going to affect the secondary campuses, even junior highs or middle schools, more so than your elementary offerings. But I think here's the thing, if we sell these bonds, all of these projects that I've targeted here or that we've talked about might not be so much in the way of brick and mortar for normal instructional. It's really on the support side. But if we see something along the lines, just because we're authorized with the bonds in the bank at the interest rates, we see something along the lines during design, or we need to slow up a little bit, we certainly have that ability.
That's what I was thinking about the stadium. Right now, we're at 50%. So there wouldn't be a need to really expand that.
Well, the whole deal is though, if you expand, that gives you more,
You could do more.
That's true.
Yeah. At some point in time, will we as a district have comprehensive high school where there's full football and marching band, yeah, I think that's all going to come back. But does that impact our need for additional high school facilities sooner rather than later? And I think that's the real moving target.
Right.
But I think something to consider, if you're not transporting as many kids, I think some of those funds could be diverted to technology. If you have more of that virtual instruction, I do think, just like the teacher, Ms. Riodel, who commented tonight on public comment, right? She's looking at the equipment that she needs. And I remember on the first day of school visiting Stacy Gist over at Howard Norman Elementary. She had her board, the big clear screen TV, she had her laptop, and she had her Chromebook. And she had some other camera device. And she was all set up in one corner of the room. So just thinking about that setup, as we do continue to engage in this virtual instruction, we're going to have to maybe revisit the equipment that our teachers need. So, and because technology is in that bond, we divert some of the funds.
And we're not
into
tied.
that area.
We aren't tied number to technology numbers. I mean, we have flexibility there.
No, I think there's a lot of flexibility in that. And next month, or David Ostreicher and I have challenged True North to let's take a snapshot of the year we've traveled. Let's celebrate the successes of the delivery of the first phase of the bond program. Let's bring you a short summary of the technology plan and its implementation, and bring you up to speed on where we are today, and then how we plan to fold savings from the bond sales we did not use because we maximized E-rate, and what those next projects are going to need to be. And there's a good conversation there that we need to update you on. I will say that one silver lining that I talk about often on the technology side of things is we've kicked our technology plan further along because of the necessity, because we went into shutdown. We weren't planning, for example, 1-to-1 this year.
Right.
It was going to be maybe 6th grade, maybe 9th grade. We were going to kind of baby step it. Well, we're way out front, and I would say initially, there was probably some hesitancy, and I don't want this to sound critical, on the part of staff and how we're going to utilize this. But because of the necessity, they've become real champions to the technology. So I do think there's enough wiggle room in there for CNI to drive instruction. Of course, there's infrastructure needs we always have, phone systems and cameras and security that are going to always be part of the process. But that being said, I think you've got flexibility as a board. I really do.
And
just as a real world example, for clarity. So the number, for example, the 37.5 that we're looking at here for the 2021 issuance, inside of those parentheses, you've got the designated numbers for each one of those projects. And I think I was going to ask exactly what Philip asked, but I'm just not sure I have total clarity. What we're saying is right now 18.9, 3.9, 5, 9.2, et cetera. What we're saying is those are the estimates, but inside of that bond package, we can divert money. We can move money around to the different projects based on what our new need is post-COVID, right?
That's correct.
You can need the wording in your bond in the ballot states the project, that you're going to use of construction, technology, and transportation.
Okay, so you have the.
But it does not have anything about this much.
Okay.
This and this much for this. It just gives you that for this exact reason. For unforeseen circumstances that where if you need to divert monies, you are bound by, the wording on, yes, you do need to renovate buildings and build new buildings, but those cost are, they're not obligated.
Yeah, a good example, you may recall, we had a little more money sort of earmarked or estimated for the stadium. When we got the 9th grade center, which is 2008 bonds, out and the 2 GMPs were approved, we were going to come up short on the athletic facility that needed to be out there. But because the language of the bond gives us authority, y'all authority, to sell bonds in support of the high school programs, that being a high school. some of that money was utilized or will be utilized to help pay for the field system that's going to be put in at the Ninth Bridge Center.
Gotcha.
So that's one way we were able to sort of maximize the dollars to support the spirit and what we also said to the voters we wanted to accomplish.
What is the capacity we can open up the ball games with?
It's 50% at this time, and I'm going to forget how many. It's a little less than 1,000 on the, no, it's about 600 on the visitor side, and not much more than 1,000 on the home side. That doesn't count the players. That doesn't count the band.
No, it was like 20. It was like 2,200 on the home side.
Oh, okay, okay. But not more than about 3,000 ticketed for what they consider the capacity of the stadium for attendees.
We're working through those logistics.
And if you'll look around at other districts, I think our goal, whether we can accomplish it this time around or in future discussions with our taxpayers, is to get your stadium capacity up to about 8,000. But allow it to be buildable and expandable if we needed to do that in the next generation of bonds that would be offered as a 6A and possibly one day a multiple high school system. Our stadium, it served us well, but it's going to need a little bit more breathing room.
Brad just texted, said 2,000 at home, 750 visitor is 50%.
Right. Thanks, Brad. I'm sorry I forgot those numbers. We've been talking about 50%. And
After our 2-hour meeting this week, we forgot.
How we're going to sell tickets and who's going to get tickets. And yeah, and God bless Brad and his team and Chris Contreras for working on that.
All right, that was good information.
I wanted to ask a question of Dr. Sormani, but it kind of got diverted here. So the virtual, with the kiddos who are virtual, does the District of Innovation have anything, like, is that something that we could play into to make sure that we were?
No, the district innovation is not allowed to affect your ADA funding, the kind of way you're
going.
You know what you're talking about. They won't let you touch the money with the district innovation. Last time I heard someone try to broach that subject, they said, yes, you can do that, but you're just not going to get money for it. So that was the answer that district got.
And so the whole concept of expanding like River Horse and that kind of thing is?
Well, it's dependent, I don't want to say dependent, how it is done is dependent on how TEA funds us for virtual instruction. If the same rules that exist today exist next year, then we have a whole lot of leeway as to what we can do. If they do not, then we're limited to the amount of true virtual instruction you can do, because there has to be face time and fall within a certain set of rules that the state has set for whenever you do what they call, in the old days being last school year, virtual instruction.
Way back.
All right, thank you.
19.
Good questions. Anything else?
Lisa's picture. Cool.
We will move on to the consent agenda. Everybody has their paper, so when you're ready, put your paper on.
I wanted to pull one item out to just ask one quick question to Lisa, if I could. Can I do that?
Which item are you doing?
The local district, I think local policy PEC, the comp. 9H, I'm sorry, Morgan, 9H.
Is it a clarifying question that you have?
Yeah, just a
or-
clarifying question. I went through the document and I saw the track changes and the additions on there, but I was just curious what substantive changes, how would you characterize the changes on the bereavement leave or on any of this comp? Is this a positive development? Are we, is there something that preceded this? I'm
I
just
guess
curious
if
about
it's
why we're making this change or how it benefits our team.
If it's that question, then we probably should pull it and have.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we have a motion to pull item 9H.
I'm going to write it down because I cannot figure out how to do it in here. To pull item IH.
9H.
9H, sorry. Made by Dia, seconded by
Ms. Romans.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. So do we vote on pulling this item?
I don't think we ever had before.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think we
don't
just
so
pulled it,
either. Yeah, okay.
Well, it's written down just in case anybody.
Okay.
We changed the motion to, I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent.
Is everybody all set with the rest of the consent agenda then?
Do you want me to, so we were going to vote on the consent agenda amending, pulling this out, right? And we do that first and then we do the pulled item?
Yes.
Sorry, it's like it's my first meeting all over again.
I'm feeling like that today.
Okay.
So do we?
The motion reads
Oh.
to approve the consent agenda as amended by pulling, item 9H.
Okay, is there a motion?
I just read it. I didn't make it.
So
Okay, motion made by Mr. Padilla, second by Mr. Gallo. So all in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended? Motion passes 6-0. Okay, so now, Ms. Patterson, we can have discussion on 9H.
In response to the question, it is a change to our current local DEC policy. It is an addition to add the bereavement leave as an option. We currently do not have a bereavement leave. It has been something that employees have requested, and when we took a look at adding it, we definitely saw the benefit. It is an indirect cost, so there's not an actual budget line item that would occur from this, but it's something that we felt would benefit the employees. And so after we surveyed neighboring districts and the number of times we received the request, we felt like it was something that would definitely benefit our staff to provide them with the option to have bereavement leave.
Well, thank you. Kudos for that decision. Thank you, Lisa, for that background. I think that's very cool. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions I can answer on that?
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
So do we have a motion to accept item 9H on the consent agenda? Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Gooding. So all in favor of item 9H on the consent agenda? Motion passes 6-0. Okay, now for action items, Dr. Sermani.
This action item is a requirement for Texas Education Agency in order to deliver virtual instruction. What you see here is the draft. It's almost completely done. What your vote actually is to authorize the superintendent to submit an asynchronous plan to the state of Texas for review. I have to submit that plan by October 1st. They will review it, they have a rubric, they grade it, and they send us feedback and tell me either yay or agree. And so preferably I'd like to have them say yay. So we work very hard on it. A lot of teams out there. This plan here is a very detailed education, EduBabble speak version of what you've seen us present all along. There's not anything different, just a whole lot more details. So my team and I are prepared to answer any questions you have. And by the way, you also can approve it with changes you'd like to see made in the future before it's submitted. So you have those options as well.
So I have a question, and I think Dr. Thomas spoke to this earlier, but so with this asynchronous plan, the instruction that's being provided, is it something, for example, the lessons that the teachers are given, is it the same type of lesson that would be expected to be complete within their class period in a day? Does that question even make sense?
Yes. It depends on what you mean by it. Let me say it this way. The amount of rigor is meant to be the same as it would be in a regular time period. So the idea behind the plan is to try to get as close to equal as it was when we were in person. And obviously there are differences because in a virtual environment, you do things differently than you would in an in-person environment. So in that regard, there's a difference. And so that's what the aspiration is, yes.
Any other questions? So what does the motion read? Morgan, how does it read?
I make a motion to authorize the superintendent to submit the plan when ready.
Okay. So made by Ms. Hubbard. Second by Mr. Owens. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0. And who is next? You?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Cardwell.
All right, good evening. I'm just a segue into Jessica Moulter's presentation, but as you remember back in February, we brought y'all the SD drawings of our transportation facility. And after doing some budget crunches and different things like that, we realized that the project wasn't going to be within the budget because of the location of the building. And then historically, we bring y'all SD drawings to approve. And since we have moved this building to a new location for cost savings reasons, and we've changed some of the floor plan inside it, we felt it necessary to bring it back to y'all, show y'all the new location, show y'all the new floor plan, let y'all approve it, and allow us to continue with this project. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Moulter.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you, board, Dr. Strata Thomas. It's good to see you all again, even if it's through a computer screen. Hi. As Brandon had mentioned, we wanted to update you with the current layout and some changes that we've made to really get you a facility that is going to be much larger maintenance spaces than what you currently have, maintain that professional development space and data center, and then also provide some really nice spaces for your drivers and dispatch so that they have the space and facilities they need. You'll see that there's a bit of an update in the schedule. So we've been working over the spring and summer diligently trying to bring this into budget with different ideas from Barry Williams and our design team and Henry and Brandon. And so our current schedule has us today seeking your design approval. We'll have a month to make the changes that we've looked at here. We've already made quite a few of them. And we'll come back to you in September with the final drawings and be requesting for an authorization to have Barry Williams go out to bid with the project. That will give them a month to hit the streets, get the bids back, and bring you back a GMP to approve at the October board meeting. We're looking to hopefully start construction in November. That gives you an 8-month construction timeline for completion in June, and then a 1-month move-in before the start of school in August. We wanted to show you a bit of the program changes really quickly here. I highlighted them, so I'm not expecting you to remember these from months ago when we presented them, but did highlight some of the changes here. But really, we've reduced the square footage of the building somewhat, but really with a focus on keeping the spaces where the human interaction is very adequate and a good working space for those folks. And then, as you can see, we haven't really touched the data center at all. The bus maintenance shop has gotten a bit smaller, but that is still significantly larger than what you currently have there on College Street facility. Brandon, if you don't mind going down to the site plans, I'll show the plans here. So if you look at the plan on the left, that was the original master plan for this site when we first looked at it. And so it had that orange dashed line is showing really the division between the existing to the north and the proposed to the south. When we started working on it, things changed a little bit, of course, in design. And so that plan on the right is what we brought to you last time. And so it was very similar to what you saw in that original master plan. So after looking at this for a while, we realized that it was going to cost quite a bit to extend utilities that far south on the property, as well as undertake a lot of the paving improvements there. So this is our current revised site plan, and you can see that the new building is due west of the existing maintenance and warehouse building, kind of across the parking lot there. So this has the benefit of reducing a lot of site paving, reduces our utility lines significantly. There is a future drive planned that's just west of that building. So it will allow some very convenient access for the bus facility in the future, a second drive into the space. Restriping of the existing parking is going to allow for driver parking close to the facility. It will, of course, the maintenance and warehouse building is currently on a septic system. And so this will simplify and really streamline the conversion of that onto the sewer line. And then it will also, if you have been out there to check out the 9th grade center or the Ag Barn, there is a construction road that you can kind of see in this as well. And so it will allow us to maintain that road. Our previous proposal had actually been kind of on top of it. So this will allow you to maintain that, as well as the existing detention pond, and with no improvements needed there. And so for the floor plans, again, I'm not expecting you to remember what this looked like before, but we've mirrored it. So it's a mirror image of what it had been before. And the reason really is on the second floor, but on the first floor, show you here, we really focused on keeping those repair bays oriented north-south because those are the best orientations for the breezes and not having direct sunlight. You can see that the repair bays did reduce in scope. We had 6, we're down to 4 now. We removed the covered bay areas. And there's a slightly more compact floor plan, but the spaces that are there for offices and driver lounge space are equivalent.
Jessica, as you go along, you may want to talk about expandability too, that just because we've changed the design, by no means have we hemmed ourselves into something we cannot expand in the future. So if you, as you go along, I'd like to remind us to talk about that as well.
Absolutely, it's a great point. So these bays are intended to be expanded. So you can see here on the left side of the building in the blue, that's the large repair bay space, and it will fit 2 buses nose to nose in there. So it can be expanded further to the west by simply adding more bays and just moving that exterior wall. So as you grow with need in the future for more bays, those can be added along in the future with minimal additional driveways.
But the good news is the infrastructure that is here will cost us less in the future if we have an add-on, because we will have anticipated that in some of the basic engineering. So it will allow us to grow, and probably grow more economically than if we had tried to squeeze all of the things we wanted in this particular budget, and we just couldn't get there with the budget.
And on the second floor, there have just been a couple of modifications there, but really this was the reason we mirrored this plan. Was dispatch really wants to be able to see over all the bus parking. And so we wanted that dispatch to be on the second floor with the corner view of all of your bus parking. And so this will maintain that orientation there for them, being able to look over the fleet and see what's going on. So again, no changes to the data center. The professional development room, we removed the folding panel wall, but that's something that can always be added in the future. It still maintains the same size. So those are the highlights, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have for it.
And I would say that we had a great stakeholder design team from our transportation division. And their input all throughout has been considered, and we've largely kept their desires intact. We've just come up with a more economical way because of the location. And over time, I think it'll better service, because likely where we're putting this, that would have been land that we might not have developed otherwise, but it gives us more land and surface south down to where the future junior high, future elementary, and whatever other programs we want to put into place. But a warning now is, as we develop more and more, what's going to cost a lot of money out here is civil work, drainage, and the fact that that soil moves. And you've all lived as board members in this community long enough to know that that drives up the cost. So I think that Jessica, and with the help of Barry Williams and of course Brandon's leadership, we've come up with a very acceptable alternative to what we originally proposed, and this likely will come in under budget. Right, Britt?
Yes, that is correct, Henry.
It's 4 bays.
Now, how many bays do we have now?
We have 2. And over to the left of that diagram is where we would expand the bays going back to the east, right? Does that orient? Yeah.
So other than just reducing the number of bays, I saw on the first slide, we went from like over 8,000 square feet to under 6.
Oh.
Is that like a 25% reduction in the size?
So
the rest of it come off of?
right, so actually in the orange on the right-hand column, that's the total there. And I apologize, there's just a lot of stuff on this slide. I was told you're not supposed to have more than 30 words on a slide, and I failed epically on this one, so.
Okay, I was looking over there on the best so okay.
Okay, so the total square footage was 19.6, and we're down around 17 now.
What else? 2,000.
And the 2,000 then came from the bus maintenance job primarily?
Primarily there.
Primarily.
We may have shrunk a few offices and tightened up a few, the break rooms and a little bit of PD room.
What you don't see on it is to the west, where the future expansion will be tarmac as well as covered awnings, so we can do some things covered in the shade outside of the building. And in the future, that'll become bays. So the wash area and those kind of things will still be under consideration.
And I think when we spoke to our users too, when it comes to the drivers and the dispatch area and the office space, it's very hard to add those on later. It's hard to add a little bit of that on later. The bays are big areas, but they are a simpler add-on later as well.
Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the transportation schematic design and district data center as presented by Fluker Associates.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard, second by Mr. Padilla. All in favor? And motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, board.
Good to see you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Great to see you too. Thank you so much.
And up next, I guess, is that Britt?
It is me segueing into Britt speaking. So tonight we're going to review the GMP for the athletic facility, which is located by the 9th grade center. Same thing here. We struggled with getting in the budget. What Britt's going to present to you tonight is what we're capable of providing with the dollars allocated for the project. The earthwork, the dirt work for this was one of the major contributors to the cost of the project. We're probably paying 3 times as much as some of our neighboring districts because of our soil. And it's, so what and I've learned this through my process. A PVR is the potential vertical rise of a building or a structure. Anyway, so the civil engineer only wants to allow that athletic field or that building to rise so much. And so we're at 1.5 for that field and potential track. And in order to do that, we have to dig down 8 feet, bring in the existing dirt up to 4 foot, and then we have to bring in what's called select fill, and we have to pack it down anyway to prevent that athletic field from moving at all. Other like Leander, Liberty Hill, even Salado, they had to bring in 12 inches. So again, we're paying 3 times the amount because of our soil conditions, and it eats up a lot of our budget. And so that's kind of how we've gotten to this position where we're at right now with what Britt's going to present to you. And so I just want to kind of tell y'all that just so y'all kind of got an idea. And I hope my example made sense.
No, it does.
So,
and you can see the work.
right.
You can even see it out of my backyard just with the subdivision that's going in, your Gordon.
I think Manor may have worse soil conditions than we do, just from talking to their director of construction, but I think we're probably second worst in Central Texas. So with that being said, I'm going to segue over to Britt for him to take over.
And before Britt starts, let me also, and Mr. Coastal Plant's probably online and he can provide input too. We also went to the stakeholder and we said, Coach, where do you draw the line in the sand? Absolutely, where do we need to go with this? So while we had $2.5 million from the 2019 bond, 2.3 for construction, we were still not going to get there. But there's a good news story in here that Britt will get to share, and that is savings that we've produced from the 2008 bond, GMP 1, GMP 2, pooling those monies, you're able to get at a minimum what Coastal Plant and our athletes are going to need in this phase of supporting the 9th grade center. So I'll let Britt brag a little bit about that, but Coastal Plant is on the line too to answer any questions that you may have.
Perfect. Thank you, Henry. Good evening again. Todd, do you have the PowerPoint relatively handy? I think right now the GMP top sheet is being shown. We can definitely dive back into that in a minute if need be.
Where's the PowerPoint? I don't see it in there.
I don't think they're in the PowerPoint.
Did you send one, Britt?
I did, yes, ma'am. I sent it to Emily. Brandon, you've got it somewhere. Can I share my screen?
Because you edited it a little bit.
Yeah, hang on, Brett. Let me see if I can give you that. I think I have it set up like a default that nobody's allowed to. But
I mean, that would absolutely make sense.
You can make him a host and he'd be able to share.
It will only allowed to have
Yeah, it was sent
2
earlier this
Oh.
week, but I edited it. It was your PowerPoint, wasn't it?
Can you put it on the
Oh,
computer?
hang on.
Yeah.
Let me make you, can I make you a co-host? Would that
Yeah, you
work?
should.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought we had gotten it in there.
Are you able to share it, Brett?
Not as of yet. Let me try again. No, it says, oh yeah, it says this will just stop the current screen share. Perfect. Here we go. Did that work?
Yep.
It's coming.
Something's coming.
There you go.
So let me go to where? Perfect. Okay. So as we have somewhat alluded to already, just for a quick kind of recap to where we are, the 9th grade center part 1 and 2 are the remaining ending of the dollars from the 2008 bond program. When this high school was anticipated and voted on in 2008, what we are building now that has really kind of just become a 9th grade center, those dollars were anticipated to buy you a complete comprehensive high school. A lot has changed since 2008. That has been pared back to just a 9th grade center to be added on to later. Also in that was a grass football field in 2008. And so when we went through and bid this 9th grade center back a little over a year ago now, we very originally had put into place and went through the process of bidding out a grass, more or less practice field. to try to focus on educational spaces and put dollars back into the classroom. That field was completely nixed and put on the back burner at the time. Since then, we have revisited and brought this back to the forefront of our attention, as we need to get started on that project more or less now so that it can be completing with the 9th grade facility. And in this time that has elapsed, it has been brought to our attention, brought to Pfluger's attention, that there are some other things at play that needed us to really go back and relook at what this grass practice field was actually going to consist of. I think there's been some issues, some maintenance issues, real sustainability problems with your middle school fields, that those kiddos need a more reliable place to play, as well as just the maintenance cost of a grass field is growing exponentially year over year. So we were tasked, and I think properly tasked, though it was a heck of one to try to bite off, was to get a synthetic turf field into this program somewhere. As Brandon said earlier, Manor and Elgin both probably have you beat with some of the worst soils in the state of Texas, but you are definitely trying to compete with them for that. As I would suggest, you don't need to anymore. I don't know that you can fix it, but you definitely are. So when we went from a natural grass field that you can allow to undulate and move a little bit, you've got abilities through your maintenance program to top dress with sand during the off season and year over year to re-level that surface and to provide an adequate surface for those kids to play on. When you put a synthetic field down, your criteria for movement is very, very low. Your ability for movement's low. In fact, we are at, as Brian said earlier, an 1.5 inches is the maximum vertical movement that UIL will allow, that is safe for kids, and which is actually the exact same PVR. I believe, Jessica, we may be at like 1.25 inches on the 9th grade center. So that 3-story building that's not but a couple hundred yards away, that seems to be a much more, and is a much more elaborate, sophisticated structure and then this football field has, they are actually sitting on an almost identical subsurface foundation. So you have to absorb and find a way to account for those costs somewhere. So going through how we got to where we are, once we identified that these plans needed to come back out with a new and improved scope with synthetic turf in it, early June is when Pfluger first issued us the current set of drawings, as we're bringing you a GMP for tonight. We put that on the streets for a little over 2 weeks for competitive bidding. We got those in and immediately realized that we had somewhat of an issue with budgets, especially once we had to add all that additional subgrade work. So we went through, rolled our sleeves up with Pfluger's team. Brandon was heavily involved, civil engineers heavily involved, trying to figure out what of the many options we had was really going to fit the best. We've pared back some of the I guess luxuries of what this field did have at one point, and in a perfect world we'd love to give you, but have absolutely maintained what your maintenance department, your athletic director stated in their kind of shopping list were their priorities and must-haves for this facility. So that got us to when last week on the 18th, we presented an option that met all the criteria from the stakeholders with a budget or a dollar figure that fit into budget. That was presented to Brandon and Henry last week, which has gotten us to tonight. So with the program that's being presented, you do have a competition level synthetic turf field. Is going to be provided by a company called Field Turf. They have got several fields in Central Texas in your area, a couple of fields that are in your district. Some of y'all's direct competitors are playing on Field Turf. It is a very, very high quality system and sports lighting that is being provided by Musco, which is the absolute top of the line sports lighting manufacturer. We went down several rabbit trails of some off-brand second tier sports lighting subs. It became evident very quickly that the money we're going to save up front, the dollars we would save you day one, would be absolutely absorbed and probably surpassed in the future with maintenance and headaches of having to deal with them. So then what also we have put into this is your competition running track is really comprised of 2 to 3 components. You have a large section of mass earthwork that is digging down that 8 feet and then bringing it back in 6-inch layers, compacting it and filling it with moisture as we go up. That is the most expensive component of that track. That is going to be put into place. That's also something that is very, very difficult to do down the road because of how much excavation has to be done. If we were to build just the field and not do any of the preparatory work for the track, you would very much so have to cause some damage to your synthetic field to put the track in. So we're going to put in all of the nasty, ugly mass dirt work for that track. At this time, though, the top 8 inches of gravel and drainage and then the actual asphalt and the running surface is not in this project at this time. When we get there, when we get a few slides further in, I'll show you a potential avenue and roadmap to get that incorporated. We've talked with Henry and Brandon about slow walking some of that process so that maybe we can add it in later. But the GMP that is presented tonight has all of the upfront prep work for a track without the actual running surface. It does provide ADA access to viewing areas. There are no bleachers currently at this time, but it's got skimmed off, graded flat areas that parents could come with their chairs and blankets and do what they wanted to do to watch the games, as well as some convenience water hydrants, and one ADA drinking fountain for the students as well out in that area. So the construction schedule, if this is approved tonight, we will finish up our contract with the district and actually bringing this GMP dollar figure into our prime contract, get all the paperwork done, get our subcontractors on board, and probably truly start work mid-September by the time we're actually out there moving dirt work. And then having this done by mid-June, a substantial completion with then establishment of punch list and working off those final items for a true July 15th completion date, which will have it ready for y'all's FF&E, which on a football field there's not a lot, but moving in y'all's equipment and actually setting it up to start practice if need be early August of next year. The cost of the project. So moving some 2019 dollars, I've heard throughout the meeting, Henry's alluded to this at least once earlier, that some of the high school athletic dollars, being that this 9th grade center is a high school, that $2.1 million is 2019 bond dollars that were earmarked for high school athletics. So that is fully applicable here. So $2.1 million of this total GMP is coming from 2019 bond dollars. Within the 2008 bond program that is encapsulating the 9th grade center, if you recall, this program came out in phases. We did a dirt work, a concrete, and a structural steel package to try to expedite construction and move things along as we were still value engineering kind of on the back end. We put out dirt work, concrete, and structural steel. That was BP1 or bid package 1, knowing that then several months later was going to come out basically all of the architectural, electrical, mechanical, all of those components were going to be in a second bid package. At the time that we established, and I came to y'all back over a year ago for a GMP approval on bid package 1, there were a lot of things still unknown and a lot of things still in the air on what the second bid package was going to look like. So through really the benefit of the construction management at risk process. We went through and met with some subs, and then met with some of the district employees and shareholders, and basically identified that we needed a safeguard in place. Not that there was anything foreseen, because if it was foreseen, we could have taken care of it ahead of time, but that there was a very large project that could have had a lot of unforeseen, and that it would be prudent of us to identify some dollars and set them aside to take care of all of these unforeseen connectivity, phasing, coordination issues as these two completely separate projects were going to, over the course of almost 2 years, merge themselves together. Through a lot of pre-construction, a lot of meetings and coordination, and truthfully through just a very, very stand-up job with a lot of due diligence from Pfluger and their consultants, we have had very, very few uh-ohs and oh-darns and things sneak up on us. We have gotten to a point in those two projects on that 9th grade center where everything that we are doing from this point forward is building upon something we've already built. We're painting walls we already sheetrocked. We're putting flooring on concrete we already poured. So when we get to the point that we're building upon just ourselves, our exposure to risk is very, very little. So we sat down once we started to really see what kind of budget issues we were up against. We sat down with Henry and Brandon and said, look, these dollars are here. These are allocated. They are set aside. We don't see a whole lot of risk ahead of us to use these. They would be return savings at the end of the 9th grade center, but there's no reason to lose a project now for money that we're going to give back later. Let's go ahead and return this to the owner, to the district now, and utilize it to complete this facility. So when we went through and shook all of those dollars out, we had almost $191,000 from the first bid package of the 9th grade center, and right at $420,000 from the second bid package, that we, when sitting down with Henry and Brandon, see that we can safely and conservatively give back at this point to fund the remainder of this athletic project while still maintaining some level of safeguard to that 9th grade center, so we're not coming back to you in future board meetings with change orders because we've cut that project so close. So when you add all three of these allotments of dollars together, that totals $2.78 million of funds that will provide you a competition synthetic track or synthetic field, all the preparatory work for a track, ADA accessibility, sidewalks, fencing, as well as a water fountain, lighting, sound, everything but a track. Through conversations with Brandon over the past few weeks, there was the discussion of, we cannot afford it today. That 2.7 million is as far as we could come to y'all with tonight, but what dollar figure can I lock in for what that track would cost, and to what point could that be added in the process? So when we went back to all of our vendors and identified that number, that the 8-lane running track, the last few inches of gravel drainage surfaces, as well as the asphalt, the running track surfacing itself, and the striping is about $435,000. I can lock that price in. That price is good throughout the completion of the project. And we've discussed and are fully on board with, I guess, kind of slow walking, for lack of a better term, that scope of work. What we have currently is, on top of the mass grading, is to just put topsoil that is already on site, as well as grass and irrigation. At whatever point, if you were to add the track a year or 5 years down the road, you basically just scrape off 8 inches of the topsoil and place your asphalt. So we would hold off placing that topsoil and grass as long as we could, so that if any funds were to become available through additional savings from construction, through other funds that y'all may find available, we can add that 8-lane track through sometime your April board meeting of next year. Would be really the last feasible moment to put that in at that dollar figure, without really flipping over the apple cart, would be your April board meeting, which would give us May, June, July, give us 3 months to actually complete that scope of work.
Since that slide was produced, we've found an additional 130,000 in savings. And so for the lane track currently, we're at 300,000 roughly, what we're needing for savings.
We're not real prepared to guarantee anything, but I feel like that as we travel with tonight's authorization and move ahead, that between Brandon and I working with our vendor partners, the track has a high probability of coming into fruition. But I'm not prepared to stake my ranch on it just yet, since I don't have a ranch. Any questions? Or Brad, would you like to hop in real quick and kind of talk about the strategies for the field?
Yes, sir. Thank you. No, I think the biggest thing, that turf is huge for a lot of different groups. It gets you the 365 day use. I think if we kept it at grass, we've seen what the middle school, fields are like and what the water is like in Hutto to try to keep a good UIL surface going. So, by maintaining that turf in the project, for PE, all of our freshman sports out there, cheer, band, special education groups, your Special Olympics, there's other renters that would take the heat off some of our facilities at the high school. We can move junior high soccer and football out there. It'd be great to have the lights for the, the junior high football, and be able to have both games being played, some at the freshman center, some at Hutto Memorial Stadium. So it would also have that second turf field would take off the use and pressure of Hutto Memorial Stadium. And then, as our numbers grow this summer, we had close to 400 kids in our summer strength camp. That would give us yet another weight room and track and turf facility that we could move some of our people out to that 9th grade center. So just moving up to the 6A level and being that robust district that we want to be, the turf is the most important piece to the puzzle out there.
Thank you, Brad.
I have a question. If we're talking about making that a playing field for the middle schools, potentially, will there be like bleachers and stuff? Is that included in this?
There's no bleachers slated. The hardscape and the preparations for bleachers are part of this overall process. And again, like I said, if we can generate savings throughout this and some of the other projects, there probably is an opportunity to put at least a 600-seat portable type system out there that you would typically see for a junior high. And frankly, if you go to sub-varsity fields around Texas, Tom Glenn High School, for example, they have about a 1,200 seater, right? It would not be a big stadium setup. We never planned to do that out there because Memorial Stadium becomes your premium venue. But very easily, we can go back in through savings and other means and methods and make sure that we have what we need out there as we grow.
I'm only asking because there are currently, they're very small amount of bleachers at both of the middle schools, but they do both have them.
Yes.
And we would provide that same amount at this facility for the junior high games, as well as areas for the parents to bring their bag chairs up instead of it.
I was wondering why Britt was saying that parents could bring their blankets, and I thought, yeah.
And Britt didn't mention it, but this includes fencing and other types of things, because we don't want the longhorns that we're supposed to be putting out at the ag barn to wander over onto that natural grass and get confused and that artificial grass. So it's a doable plan, board. It's not everything we wanted tonight, but if you'll let us have an opportunity to work this with Britt and Brandon and us keeping a real close eye, I feel like we'll deliver a lot more than what you're going to get based on what we're recommending tonight. And you already are. If we go back in time and we realize this once upon a time was going to be just a grass field, well, today you're stepping up to a new premium that benefits all children, not just, athletics, but all users. And you now have two nice locations where you can practice and work out and also showcase kids. And as I like to tell the public when it comes to these types of systems, depending on the warranty on this, and this usually gets about a 10-year, sometimes 11-year warranty, the return on the investment for going with an artificial turf system is such that it pays for itself in about 7 years from our not having to mow, cut, blow, put down fertilizer, do the irrigation that's required, plus the maintenance that's required to maintain that field. So that's generally the rule of thumb, about 7 years, and you've paid for this field and cost avoidance dollars on your M&O budget.
That's 7 years on a first install, Henry. After 10 years, when you re-carpet just the actual surfacing itself, being all the subgrade work is in, you're at a 4 to 5 year on your second go around. Is it because the remediation cost or just the retrofit cost to re-turf it in 10 to 11 years is substantially less. So you'll have a 4 to 5 year payoff on your second go around.
All right, any other questions? Do you have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the GMP for the 9th grade center athletic complex as presented and authorize Baird Williams Construction to begin construction.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Hubbard, second by Mr. Baldwell. All in favor? The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brett.
Then up next, Mr. Graham.
Madam President, back in June, the board adopted both a general fund and debt service budget. The proposed tax rates that I would recommend tonight support those budgets as presented and adopted. So Hutto ISD is proposing a 2020 maintenance and operations tax rate of 1.00650 per $100 valuation. Proposing a 2020 debt service tax rate of 46 cents per $100 valuation for a total tax rate of 1.46650, which is lower than last year's overall tax rate by 3.185 cents.
Any questions or discussion on that? Is there a motion?
The motion reads to make a motion to set a tax rate for the district on a $100 valuation for the tax year 2020 at a total tax rate of $1.46650 to be assessed and collected by the duly specified assessor and collector as follows. 1.00650 for the purpose of maintenance and operation, and 0.46000 for the purpose of payment of principal and interest on debts.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Padilla and second by Mr. Owens. So all in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, board.
Ms. LaJudas, I will be recusing myself from the following vote.
Okay. Did you note that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Graham, here again.
Yes, ma'am. Back in 2011, Hutto ISD voters previously authorized for a branch campus maintenance tax on behalf of the East Williamson County Higher Education Center and Temple College. Because the branch campus maintenance tax is levied within Hutto ISD boundaries according to the tax code, the Hutto ISD board must approve and set the tax rate on a yearly basis. The tax collected by the Williamson County Tax Office and is used by Temple College to fund the maintenance and operation expense of the Higher Ed Center in Hutto. The proposed rate of 0.048440 is 0.0028 cents more than last year's rate of 0.046040. So the recommendation is to adopt a maintenance and operation tax rate for the Higher Ed Center of 0.048440.
Any questions?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Hubbard and second by Mr. Owens. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 with 1 recused. And calendar announcements, future agenda item request.
I got nothing.
Okay, so just a reminder then, September 30th, we have is the conference. Into
Who's virtually going?
Edgar, Morgan, myself, and Dr. Thomas.
But these sessions are open, so you don't have to participate right in that moment, right? You can do it later.
I believe so.
That was my understanding when I signed up.
They're not
30 days.
asynchronous?
Huh? Yes, I need asynchronous.
They, I believe they're open for 30 days after.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
I already voted.
You already voted?
And have a very happy birthday.
Motion made by Mr. Caldwell and seconded by Ms. Hubbard. So all in favor? And motion passes 6-0.
And our lovely Miss Connie is celebrating a birthday next Saturday.
Woo-hoo.
Big one.
Is it?
They're all big.
They're all big ones, but that's why we had little bun cakes tonight in her honor.
Oh.
Bye, Jessica.
Bye, Jessica.
Thank y'all.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for staying in so late.
Hi, Kendra, Valentine.
I studied these butterflies.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just off tonight.
Thank you, Lisa.